Chapter 1302. There were jade-tied pearls, Nianling flowers and fire lotus wood produced by the Great Lake of the southern wilderness ancient region, snow tassels produced by the accumulation of thousands of years in the northern border snow region, dark light meteoric iron, one of the 6 great rare metals in the world, and the bone marrow of Taowu, which was known as the ice beast of the Archean ice demon clan, which was almost extinct. These were just the raw materials. There were several magic treasure embryos, but they had not been formally refined yet. Perhaps they were refined with other materials to be safe, or perhaps they had deliberately accumulated them and then used some secret method to smelt them into the great celestial wheel of the Grand Imperial Palace in one go. In addition to a variety of raw materials, there were many sets of magic treasures of the same style. Unlike magic treasures could be refined according to the standard. There were weapons, defensive equipment, and other types of magic treasures. There was a dazzling and large number of them. In addition to magic treasures, there were various types of elixirs, which were incalculable. Among them, within the Grand Imperial Palace, there was another incarnation-level magic treasure. It was a pill cauldron with an extremely simple and unadorned style. Lin Feng took a long time to recognize that this was the famous primordial chi cauldron of the primordial era. It used to be a Mahayana-grade magic treasure, and it was also the magic treasure of Emperor Chong, the founder of alchemy in the human cultivation world. It was the first Mahayana-grade cauldron magic treasure in human history. However, when Emperor Chong died, this magic treasure was destroyed along with him. The original spirit of the primordial chi cauldron was annihilated, leaving only the remains of the outer shell. Later, the Great Zhou dynasty found it and refined it again, giving birth to a new original spirit. Later, it was promoted from a spirit-nurturing grade magic treasure to the current transformation grade magic treasure. This treasure made an indelible contribution to the rise of the Great Zhou dynasty. If it could become a Mahayana grade again, it would undoubtedly be a top magic treasure that was not inferior to the Sun-Moon Divine Furnace or the Desolate Ancient Immortal Furnace, second only to the Ding of Shenzhou. Lin Feng shook his head and couldn't help but laugh. The rise of most powerful forces is supported by a top-notch alchemy artifact. Putting aside how to deal with the Grand Emperor Palace and the Great Wheel of Heavens, Lin Feng and Xianmen Tianzong would not keep the primordial chi cauldron, as well as most of the assets that Liang Pan had brought here with the Grand Emperor Palace, and even the Mahayana grade artifact, the Dragon Subduing Tablet. They would be handed over to the new Great Zhou Emperor, Liang Qian. Lin Feng had no intention of playing a balance between the Great Qin dynasty, the northern militant imperial court, and the Great Zhou dynasty. However, he always gave preferential treatment to those who were friendly to him. Moreover, a portion of these items would fall into the hands of the Grand Qin Empire. How much they could keep would depend on the abilities of Liang Qian and the others. In this battle, Yinghai was completely in their hands. For the celestial sect of Xianmen, it was the greatest harvest. Lin Feng handed the Yin-Yang Life and Death Formation, which contained the Permitha Golden Bridge and the Ding of Shenzhou, as well as the Grand Emperor Palace and the Great Wheel of Heavens, to Shi Tianhao and Li Yuanfang. He ordered them to bring it back to Yujing Mountain and slowly refine it. Yu Hongyan would first head to Snowgale Country, and after a short stay, he would return to Yujing Mountain. Lin Feng's 3 clones lived on 3 immortal mountains, and then disappeared into the Yin-Yang Sea with the immortal mountains. He did not forbid others from entering the Yin-Yang Sea through the realm passageway entrance as usual. However, there were not many people who dared to swagger in now. Anyone who wanted to enter the Yin-Yang Sea had to first consider Lin Feng's thoughts. Otherwise, apart from a handful of existences in the world, most people would probably be able to enter but not be able to leave. Lin Feng's main body still remained on Jade Capital Mountain, comprehending his Dao techniques while trying to figure out and research Liang Pan's supreme ruling divine light. Some of the great Zhou cultivators who left Tianjing City with Liang Pan, Zhu Hongguo, and the others were released, while others were punished for their past actions. Among them, there was a rather special force that slightly piqued Lin Feng's interest. It was once one of the 4 great families of the Great Qin dynasty, but it later joined the Lei family under the Great Zhou dynasty. After being ruled by the Great Zhou dynasty, the Great Zhou dynasty treated the Lei family very well. The Lei family's patriarch, Lei Lai, broke through a bottleneck that had lasted for many years and successfully refined his spirit to return to the void. This was closely related to the Great Zhou dynasty. Apart from all sorts of resources, the Lei clan had also obtained the top-notch Great Chaotic Interior True Lightning Dao scripture from the Great Zhou dynasty. As for the Lei family's most outstanding youth, Lei Jia, he had also become a rising star that the Great Zhou Empire focused on grooming. Other than the Great Chaotic Interior Realm True Thunder Dao scripture, he had also received the opportunity to cultivate other Dao techniques. Lei Jia possessed the 9 Qi True Lightning Body, one of the strongest lightning attribute physiques. His talent was astonishing, and he was famous throughout the entire divine land. He was one of the few geniuses of the new generation that was not completely overshadowed by Xianmen Tianzong and the young talents of Taishu Temple. However, if it was because of him and Lei Lai that the Great Zhou dynasty's Liang Pan and Zhu Honggu would look at them differently, it was not to this extent. As far as Lin Feng knew, Lei Lai, Lei Jia, and the Lei family had been moved to Tianjing City by Liang Pan when Zhu Yi first spread the news that he was going to the Great Zhou dynasty's Tianjing City. After that, Liang Pan and the Grand Imperial Palace left Tianjing City, but they did not forget to bring them along. They were so valued that they surpassed many members of the Great Zhou dynasty's royal family. The Lei family, Lei Jia, and Xianmen Tianzong also had some entanglements with each other. The second generation head disciple of the Xianmen Tianzong lineage, Xiao Yan Fen Tianya, Tang Jun, was the biological brother of Lei Jia from the same father and mother. It was just that one followed his father's surname while the other followed his mother's surname. However, the relationship between these two brothers from the same mother was not harmonious. It could even be said that they had a deep hatred for each other. All of this originated from Tang Jun and Lei Jia's father, Tang Wenhua. Tang Wenhua had married into the Lei family, but then disappeared after stealing a secret treasure from the Lei family. In Lei Jia's eyes, the only blemish in his perfect life was this son-in-law who ran away with his family. Tang Jun's existence seemed to constantly remind him of this. After that, the originally mediocre Tang Jun suddenly rose in power and caused the Lei family to hunt him down. Their methods were extremely cruel. There was even an order that if they could not capture him alive, they could bring his corpse back. In a short period of time, Lei Jia showed a state that he had never shown before or since. He was almost out of control and went to hunt Tang Jun personally. He did not even have the intention of capturing Tang Jun alive. He had the intention of directly killing Tang Jun and forcing Tang Jun to narrowly escape. This hunt only ended when Tang Jun fled west and became a disciple of Xianmen Tianzong. When Xianmen Tianzong held the Kunlun Mountain Dharma Assembly for the third opening ceremony, the Lei family participated along with the Great Zhou dynasty. Lei Lai personally met Lin Feng and wanted to take Tang Jun back. However, Lin Feng refused. In these years, the Lei family was also anxious. They were afraid that Xianmen Tianzong would stand up for Tang Jun. However, after that, whether it was Xianmen Tianzong or Tang Jun himself, they did not seem to have the heart to pursue the past. However, Lei Lai and the Lei family could not relax. Compared to Lin Feng's usual behavior, it was clear that he was waiting for Tang Jun to grow up in the future and personally settle the past grudges. In these years, Tang Jun's speed of growth had caught the attention of the world. As the top figure among the second-generation direct disciples of Xianmen Tianzong, he had long entered the sights of those who were observant. However, to the Lei family, it was like a death knell. As Tang Jun's cultivation grew higher and higher, there were even people in the Lei family who had the thought of assassinating Tang Jun and fighting to the death. However, it did not become mainstream. The sudden change in Tang Jun's mediocre physique was also due to his mysterious missing father, Tang Wenhua. According to Lin Feng's speculation, the sudden and drastic decision of the Lei family after his physique changed was likely closely related to Tang Wenhua. This seemingly ordinary person could have single-handedly created Tang Jun's Azure Flame Emperor body and Lei Jia's 9 Qi True Thunder body. If such a heaven-defying act could be created by someone, then even if the success rate was limited, it was no wonder that Liang Pan and the Great Zhou dynasty valued the Lei family so much. Although he could not see Lei Jie's potential value, Lin Feng believed that his bone potential value was most likely the same as Tang Jun's, 9 points. Unlike Tang Jun, Lei Jie had displayed great talent at a young age. However, after connecting the various situations after Tang Jun's physique changed, Lin Feng was almost certain that Lei Jie's physique was not innate, but was created by Tang Wenhua. In recent years, the Great Zhou dynasty and the Lei family had also put in effort to search for Tang Wenhua's whereabouts, but to no avail. Before Tang Jun could find the Lei family, Zhu Yi, Shi Tianhao, Yu Hongyan, Li Yuanfang and the others had already flattened the Great Zhou dynasty. If the Lei family had been content with their corner, they would still be fine. However, even under such circumstances, Liang Pan had not forgotten about Tang Wenhua and the Lei family, and had taken them away. Liang Pan's forcefulness did not give the Lei family any hesitation, and the Lei family did not have much choice in the first place. Although it was not difficult to make a choice between Tang Jun and Lei Jie, and compensate Tang Jun, Tang Wenhua's matter was a thorn in the Lei family's heart. On the other hand, it was unknown whether Tang Jun would appreciate the kindness. After all, from the time he was born to the time he left the Lei family, Tang Jun had never experienced any warmth there. All the memories related to the Lei family were extremely unpleasant. At this moment, he did not need to rely on the power of the family to develop. The Lei family members, including Lei Lai, all looked at Tang Jun with complicated expressions. Tang Jun's master, Xiao Yan, sat silently on the main seat and did not speak. Tang Jun stood to the side and looked emotionlessly at Lei Lai and the others. Beside Lei Lai stood a youth. His appearance was 60 to 70% similar to Tang Jun, and his expression was the same as Tang Jun's. Amidst the calmness, there were hints of coldness and fierceness. At this moment, Lei Jie's gaze was fixed on Tang Jun, and a strange emotion appeared in his eyes. Xiao Yan's expression was calm, and he had no intention of speaking. Lei Lai looked at him and sighed. His expression completely disappeared, and he did not speak. Silently, he looked at Tang Jun and Lei Jie, the twin brothers in front of him. Chapter 1303. Tang Jun looked at Lei Jie and asked casually, "Lei Dalong, how have you been?" The two youths, who were both valiant and resolute, stood facing each other. Although they had grown up and their facial features were no longer as similar as they were when they were young, there was still at least 60 to 70% similarity between their brows. It was easy to tell that the two of them had a close relationship with each other. Lei Jie looked at Tang Jun in front of him and his gaze froze. Tang Lulang, because they were of the same generation, Tang Jun and Lei Jie's nicknames were Tang Lulang and Lei Dalong respectively. From these two nicknames, one could see the difference in the treatment the two received in the Lei family. But today, the difference in reputation between the celestial sect of the celestial sect of the celestial sect of the Lei clan of the celestial sect of the celestial sect of the Lei clan of the celestial sect 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 of the true Lord Tang Jun, the eldest disciple of the sect master under Lin Feng, the head disciple of Xiao Yan, and the most outstanding successor of Xianmen Tianzong Fen Tianya. He was a top figure among the second-generation direct disciples of Xianmen Tianzong. He established the Supreme Spirit Platform, built the Supreme Pill Cauldron, formed the Purple Core phenomenon, and successfully produced the divine light of creation after forming the nascent soul. When he was in the late stages of the Golden Elixir, he had replicated the glorious achievements of his master, Xiao Yan, and killed a late Yuanying patriarch in a one-on-one battle. In the previous war between the two worlds, his performance was even more outstanding. Not only the Yuanying cultivators of other forces, but even the primordial spirit realm powerhouses were also surprised. Usually, he was very tough on enemies and outsiders, but he was very friendly to his fellow sect members. Not only within Fen Tianya, but also among all the younger disciples of Xianmen Tianzong. He interacted with cultivators from other forces, treated people well, and had the temperament of a master. Although Xianmen Tianzong had only been established for a short period of time, there were already many speculations in the human cultivation world. After Xiao Yan, Zhu Yi, and the others, if the celestial sect of Xianmen were to inherit the second-generation successor disciple, then just from the current situation, the two people with the highest possibility of inheriting the position of sect master are Burning Heaven Cliff's Tang Jun and Qian Tian Palace's Yang Tai. Although Dao Yuding and Lin Tong had a higher cultivation level, and there were also Zhou Yunsong and Han Yang who were on par with Tang Jun, Dao Yuding, and Zhou Yunsong, due to their personalities, they were not suitable candidates for sect master. Huang Zhentian and Ning Luozha. As for Han Yang and Lu Xiafeng, they had no interest in the sect, so they also withdrew from the list of candidates. As for the rest, Li Xingfei, Zhao Huan, Tan Yunqing, and the others could all be considered outstanding talents. Their names shook the vast land of the Divine Prefecture, and they were the leaders of the group. However, compared to Tang Jun and Yang Tai, they were slightly inferior. Among them, Tang Jun was unyielding and calm, and Yang Tai was steady and sharp. There was still a great suspense as to who would emerge from the two. However, as long as the two of them did not die prematurely, and there was no other dark horse that broke out of the encirclement, then they would be the second-generation direct disciples of Xianmen Tianzong who were most likely to inherit the position of sect master. All these years, Lei Jie had also made a name for himself. During the Kunlun Mountain Assembly, he was defeated by the hands of the direct disciple of Taishu Temple, Qin Xingyu, which had tarnished his reputation as a proud son of heaven. However, after Kunlun Mountain Assembly, Lei Jie did not become depressed. Instead, he concentrated on his cultivation, and his cultivation strength continued to rise. After a short period of decline, his reputation rose again, and he was even stronger than before. Among the young experts of the entire divine continent, those who were not overshadowed by the direct disciples of the celestial sect of wonders and the void temple, in this era, could be said to be as rare as phoenix feathers and unicorn horns, and Lei Jie was one of the top figures among them. However, compared to Tang Jun's brilliance, Lei Jie's brilliance was lackluster. It was not that he was not outstanding enough, but that Tang Jun was more powerful. When he was young, he saw the only blemish in his life, and they were worlds apart, but now he had surpassed him. To the proud Lei Jie, this was undoubtedly a great mockery. Tang Jun looked at Lei Jie calmly. He did not have any intention of showing off. As he continued to rise, he also felt immeasurably happy and elated. However, he did not immerse himself in it. Instead, he constantly reminded himself not to relax, and to continue to move towards greater heights. He did not reject the feeling of happiness, nor did he think that he was full of himself. He did not think that this was a negative emotion. However, as time passed and he grew stronger, this feeling gradually faded. Therefore, he was very calm when facing Lei Jie. However, this did not mean that he would forget everything that had happened. Kindness must be repaid, and enmity must be repaid. This was how Tang Jun had always been. Lei Dalong, because of my father, you hated me. The Lei family vented their anger on me. Some people who sucked up to those in power, with your tacit approval or even hints, made things difficult for me and humiliated me. In the Spirit Extermination Valley, I would have died at your hands if you had been a hair's breadth away. I have never forgotten these things. Every debt has a debtor. Let us settle this slowly one by one. Being broad-minded and magnanimous has never been the same as being lenient and allowing the weak to be bullied. If you repay enmity with kindness, how do you repay kindness? Tang Jun said calmly, but all of this, whether it was anger or disgust, at least the reason is clear. Tang Jun looked at Lei Jie. When I left my father's old residence, the Lei family hunted me down. There was even a saying that if I was alive, they would find my corpse. The Lei family hunting me down must have something to do with my father. It must have something to do with my body changing through the array in my father's old residence. But you, Lei Dalong, who has always hated me, looked down on me, and was unwilling to look me in the eye, why did you suddenly come after me personally? Although we did not get along, I also knew that you were clearly in an abnormal state at the time. You wanted to kill me as soon as you could. At that time, I had not yet entered the sect. Even if my body changed because of the array in my father's old residence, I was still a foundation establishment cultivator. Why did you suddenly act so strangely? Hearing Tang Jun's question, Lei Jie was silent for a moment. The anger he felt when he learned the truth all those years ago seemed to rise from the bottom of his heart again. The words written on the paper floated before his eyes again. Compared to the previous failure, the second was finally a success. The previous was a failure. The second was a success. Lei Jie's state of mind gradually calmed down after he had personally hunted down Tang Jun out of rage. Even when he had gone to Xianmen Tianzong's territory to participate in the Dharma assembly and knew that Tang Jun was on Kunlun Mountain, Lei Jie could still calm himself down. Over the years, Lei Jie's goal had been to prove that he was stronger than Tang Jun and use this as motivation to improve. Unfortunately, the situation was stronger than the person. Tang Jun's progress was rapid and his momentum was even faster than Lei Jie's. He gradually began to catch up. Although the people around him comforted him that Tang Jun's rise was due to Xianmen Tianzong, Lei Jie could not convince himself otherwise. Today, the two of them finally stood face to face. The anger he felt when he had just learned the truth rushed into Lei Jie's heart again. He said coldly, "Is there still a need to say this now?" Tang Jun's expression was calm. "You will tell me, won't you?" Lei Jie was silent again. After a while, he nodded and said slowly, "Yes, that's right. I will indeed tell you, just how sad we are." He turned to look at the Lei family patriarch, Lei Lai. "Grandfather." Lei Lai was silent. With a flick of his finger, a small ball of lightning floated in front of Xiao Yan and Tang Jun. A strange flow of light flowed within the lightning. This lightning was formed from Lei Lai's magic power. It was used to preserve the strange flow of light for a long time. Xiao Yan pointed with his finger and drew the information contained within the lightning. He did not look at it himself, but first sent it into Tang Jun's consciousness. He did not seem curious about the content, nor was he worried about whether Tang Jun could bear it. Tang Jun bowed to his master, Xiao Yan, and then closed his eyes. His consciousness magic power merged with the flow of light, and he browsed through the information contained within. It was a remnant of someone's consciousness that had been restored using magic power. However, because it was too damaged, it could not restore the image of light, only some sound. "I know, I have succeeded. Without a doubt, this time, it will not be a failure like the first time. Compared to the previous failure, the second one has finally succeeded, and the amount of resources and effort used is even less. However, the Lei family cannot continue to stay. If this continues, they may find traces of us." The voice came from a middle-aged man. His tone was calm and contained some joy. Tang Jun found the voice very unfamiliar, but he could also imagine that the owner of this voice should be his and Lei Jie's father, Tang Xiaohua. In just a few words, it was not difficult to outline the whole story of what had happened back then. The so-called previous failure undoubtedly referred to Lei Jie, and the second success referred to him, Tang Jun. However, from Tang Xiaohua's words, Tang Jun could not hear any affection or familial love. The joy in that voice was not the joy of having a son, but the result of success. In this voice, when Lei Jie and Tang Jun were mentioned, it was as if they were not his two sons, but two works, one a failure, the other a success. The cold indifference contained in the calm joy made one shudder. "Find traces? Who is this, they referring to? Is it the Lei family? It doesn't seem like it." Tang Jun frowned slightly. He came to a realization. When Tang Wenhua had fled from the Lei family, it was most likely to avoid the they he was referring to. The escape of the treasure was just a cover, to make it more natural for him to leave the Lei family. Since this was the case, this they naturally did not refer to the Lei family, but someone else. Tang Wenhua chose to flee with the treasures instead of faking his death. Perhaps there were other considerations, but it was not something that Tang Jun could analyze with the information he had at hand at the moment. Tang Jun looked towards Lei Lai and Lei Jie. Lei Lai slowly said, after you left Tang Wenhua's former residence, we thoroughly investigated the place. The great Zhou even secretly invited the Grand Imperial Palace to restore this remnant trace. Chapter 1304. As Lei Lai spoke, Xiao Yan had already skimmed over the voice that had been recovered from the remnant traces. His expression did not change much as he sat motionlessly. Tang Jun looked at Lei Lai and nodded. Then his gaze landed back on Lei Jie. Speaking of which, if it wasn't for the traces left behind by light and shadow, I wouldn't even know what he looked like. My relationship with him was even more indifferent. It could be said that there was no emotional foundation to speak of. Ever since I was young, all the difficulties and humiliation I've suffered actually come from him. Tang Jun was silent for a moment. The only person who cared about me was my mother, but because he left without saying goodbye and fled with the treasures, she died of depression and left us early. However, perhaps it's because I don't have any feelings for him apart from the bloodline connection between us that even after hearing those words, I only felt a bit of disgust and didn't feel particularly angry. As for you, before he left, you had already started to remember. He was a live-in son-in-law of the Lei family, and even had to wear a mask in front of others. It seems that you and him were not completely emotionless. There would have been a happy and loving relationship between father and son. Because of this, Lei Jie had been especially mindful when Tang Wenhua had fled with the treasures without saying a word. When he dreamed at night, when he was alone, and especially when he thought of his mother who had died early, did Lei Jie ever think that Tang Wenhua might have had his own difficulties back then? After learning the truth of the matter, Lei Jie was naturally furious, and he felt that he had been deceived and humiliated. Especially when in Tang Wenhua's eyes, he was not just an object, but a failed product. He was a pave and experiment for the birth of the successful product, Tang Jun. How could Lei Jie, who had always been proud and aloof, not be furious? He completely lost control of his emotions, and when he couldn't find Tang Wenhua, he vented all of his anger on Tang Jun. Shut up, don't speak. Ignoring the presence of Xiao Yan and Lei Lai, Lei Jie shouted in a low voice, his eyes fixed on Tang Jun. The face that resembled Tang Jun's was slightly distorted at this moment. Lei Jie, who was already in the middle stage of yuanying, rarely lost control of his emotions like this, but he was clearly unable to calm his mind at this moment. Tang Jun looked at him calmly and shook his head. Do you think I'm deliberately humiliating you and showing off? You and I have a score to settle, but I have no intention of humiliating you, much less showing off to you. At the end of the day, whether we succeed or fail, in that person's eyes, we are not his flesh and blood. There is no familial love between us. But I still have to thank him. My azure flame monarch body was indeed bestowed by him. This made my path of cultivation much smoother, but because of him, I also suffered many setbacks and tribulations. Tang Jun placed his hands in front of him and spread them out. Looking at the lines on his palms, he said unhurriedly, after listening to those words just now, for a moment, an idea popped into my mind. I'm now working hard to cultivate, constantly working hard. My cultivation is getting higher and my strength is getting stronger and stronger. So far, I've achieved some results. Isn't this indirectly proving what he said about success products? My continuous success is actually proof of his success. Is it because he helped me create the Azure Flame Monarch body that I can achieve what I have today? After all, back in the Lei family, my performance was very ordinary. Tang Jun looked at Lei Jie calmly and smiled slightly. But this thought was fleeting. Whether it's in terms of talent, whether or not I could enter a sect without the Azure Flame Monarch body, whether or not I could still achieve my current results, I have always persevered and worked hard. I have chosen the path of cultivation, so I will do my best to walk it and see the wonders of the great Tao in the blue sky. Perhaps, if I hadn't changed my constitution at his former residence, I would have been mediocre for the rest of my life. But even so, I will persevere on that path. Hearing this, Lei Jie's face twisted slightly. Slowly, he closed his eyes. Scenes from his youth were replaying in his mind one after another. Lei Jie was not a spoiled brat. Although he was proud, he was not blindly arrogant. Because of Tang Wenhua, he had been working hard since he was young to avoid being criticized behind his back. After learning the truth and his initial rage, he worked even harder in order to have the ability to find Tang Wenhua in the future. He wanted to prove that he was not a failure and that he was better than Tang Jun. But as he worked hard, he also felt fear in his heart. In the past, he had thought that he was born with the 9-chi true thunder body and was destined to become a legend. Because of this, the Lei family thought highly of him and did their best to nurture him so that he would not be blamed for Tang Wenhua. Even though he had been suppressed by the dual-pupiled Shitiani in his early years, Lei Jia had been full of motivation to surpass him. But after learning the truth, he could not help but doubt. If not for the 9-chi true thunder body, could he have reached his current height? Perhaps he would still have some achievements. After all, his comprehension ability was not bad, but how far would he be from where he was now? More importantly, if he hadn't displayed the 9-chi true thunder body since he was young, would the Lei family still put in so much effort to nurture him? Would he have suffered the same fate as Tang Jun, dragged down by Tang Wenhua and faced the wrath of the Lei family? Tang Wenhua's 9-chi true thunder body had caused him to walk the path of fate that was completely different from his own. But this father who had treated him as a test subject, an object, a failed product, and this experiment were the source of his humiliation and anger. Perhaps, if there was no Tang Jun, the so-called successful product, as a comparison, Lei Jia would have been slightly better off. However, as Tang Jun continued to soar and rise to power in recent years, the pressure on Lei Jia increased. This kind of contradictory mentality had always been in Lei Jia's heart. Even though he had successfully formed his nascent soul, it still existed. It did not lessen, nor did it disappear. Instead, it would completely erupt at a certain time. Lei Lai looked at Lei Jia and sighed in his heart. He could sense Lei Jia's state of mind and tried to ease it, but unfortunately, the effect was limited. Although Lei Jia had been trying his best to calm himself down in order to ease his mind, how could Lei Lai not see that Lei Jia was only forcefully suppressing it? If this trend continued, it would be extremely difficult for Lei Jia to reach the late Yuanying stage even though he had reached the mid-Yuanying stage. In reality, for a cultivator with the 9-chi true thunder body, it was actually relatively easy to reach the late Yuanying stage from the mid-Yuanying stage. At least, it was much easier than for other cultivators. For Lei Jia, under normal circumstances, it would be much easier than going from the early Yuanying stage to the mid-Yuanying stage. However, with his current state of mind, it was extremely difficult. Even if he reached the late Yuanying stage, it was almost impossible for him to break through to the primordial spirit stage. With the 9-chi true thunder body, the Lei family's dragon steed, who could challenge the status of the dual-pupiled Shitiani, and was also known as a young prodigy, was actually going to stop at the late Yuanying stage with no hope of becoming a primordial spirit. This was undoubtedly a huge irony, but it was something that could actually happen. Thinking of this, Lei Lai looked at Tang Jun and couldn't help but sigh. After Tang Jun's incident at Tang Wenhua's former residence, Lei Lai and the Lei family began to re-examine this person that they had either ignored or looked down on. Many things that no one cared about or treated as a joke were dug up. Although his innate talent was only average, he was tenacious, courageous, decisive, and hardworking. He could be said to be number one among all the Lei clan disciples, even more hardworking than Lei Jia, who was already extremely hardworking. Even though the progress of his cultivation was not gratifying, it did not shake his determination and faith. More than 10 years were like one day, and as he grew older, he would only become more hardworking and diligent. Because he was ostracized and deliberately made things difficult for him, he rarely had the chance to formally come into contact with Dao techniques and spells. He could only slowly explore on his own, and there were few opportunities to show off. But when Lei Lai and the others thought about it, they couldn't help but be shocked. At that time, Tang Jun had already displayed shocking comprehension. Without the body of the Blue Flame Emperor, perhaps Tang Jun would not have been able to achieve what he had today. It was also unknown whether he would have been able to enter Xianmen Tianzong's tutelage, but with his heart towards Dao and other talents, he would most likely have walked his own path. Perhaps it would not be as dazzling, but it was destined not to be mediocre. Lei Jie's eyes were tightly shut, his face slightly twisted, and even his body was trembling uncontrollably. At the beginning, the first thought that popped into his mind was that Tang Jun was mocking him and looking down on him. Since when had he fallen to the point where he had to be reprimanded by Tang Jun? Just as Tang Jun had said, although the two of them could be said to be in the same boat, the specific circumstances were still different. Putting aside the fact that the entanglement between him and Tang Wenhua was even more complicated, he had been labeled by Tang Wenhua as a failure who was inferior to Tang Jun. This made Lei Jie feel that Tang Jun was making sarcastic remarks. Why don't we swap places and try putting you in my position? But very quickly, Lei Jie's heart suddenly became alert. If he continued to immerse himself in this kind of emotion, then he would only be left further and further behind by Tang Jun, who had already caught up to him. In the end, he would not even be able to reach the late Yuanying stage, let alone prove his primordial spirit. Lei Jie's expression finally calmed down. He opened his eyes and looked at Tang Jun again. Are you going to use this kind of method to attack my spirit? Is Xianmen Tianzong not enough for you to maintain your confidence? These words were at the tip of his tongue, but Lei Jie swallowed them back down. This was because the Tang Jun before him had a calm and clear gaze that contained only self-confidence, unyielding determination, and firm determination on his own path. Looking at Tang Jun like this, Lei Jie suddenly felt something. Even if the two of them had really swapped places, Tang Jun would still be like this. With the Ashen Flame Emperor's body, he would not say that he did not need it. It was an objective fact that it was convenient for him on the path of cultivation. But if he did not have the Ashen Flame Emperor's body, it would not have affected his state of mind that much. The path he wanted to walk would never waver. It was my fortune to have it, and it was no harm to lose it. I will walk my path without wavering. Chapter 1305. Lei Jie stared at Tang Jun. Tang Jun said calmly, Lei Dalong, you have your reasons for venting your anger on me because of that person. But it doesn't mean that I deserve everything you've done to me. Some people in the Lei family looked down on me and humiliated me because of you and that person. But I grew up eating the Lei family's food. I will not hate the entire Lei family. Back then, there were people who pitied me and took care of me. Even though there were only a few of them, I will repay them one by one. And I will never forget those who humiliated me back then. As for you, there is only enmity between us. There is no gratitude or affection. Although we are brothers, it is only a bloodline connection. In your heart, I have never been your younger brother, and in my heart, you have never been my elder brother. Back then, you nearly killed me in the Despair Valley of Souls. You beat me until I fell to the bottom of the valley. Half of my bones were broken, and my internal organs were pierced by broken bones. The reason I survived was because of my will to live and my luck. Today, we will settle this debt. In a battle of life and death, victory or defeat is up to the heavens. I will not show mercy. Whether you can live or not will depend on your own ability. Silently, Tang Jun said, I will repay kindness and enmity. I am not like you. I will not vent my anger on others because of you. But as my ancestral master said years ago, you must repay what you owe us. If you don't, I will beat you until you do. Nothing in the outside world would sway Tang Jun's heart towards the Tao, and in the process of walking on this path, he would repay kindness and enmity. Hearing Tang Jun's words, Lei Jie's eyes narrowed. Don't brag too early. Tang Jun looked at Lei Jie without any change in expression. His tone was indifferent. My original intention was to fight you as a Yuanying cultivator after you reached the primordial soul realm. But after seeing your state of mind today, it is hard to say if you can reach the primordial soul realm. So, I might as well fight you today. Today, I will suppress my cultivation to the late golden elixir realm. Lei Jie's expression changed. Seeing this, Tang Jun shook his head. You think I am humiliating you on purpose? You're wrong. Right now, we're both in the mid-nascent soul stage. A competition like that would be an insult to you. The sect I come from, the resources I enjoy, and the teachings I receive, none of them can compare to yours. Although you have been nurtured by the great Zhou dynasty in addition to the Lei clan, you still cannot compare to me, Xianmen Tianzong. Tang Jun's tone was indifferent. There was not a hint of arrogance or boasting. It was as if he was stating something that could not be more objective. What you are obsessed with is whether Lei Jia with the 9 Qi true lightning body can defeat Tang Jun with the Azure Flame Emperor body, but not whether Lei Jia of the great Zhou dynasty's Lei clan can defeat Tang Jun of Xianmen Tianzong. I do not care about this. Since you have this thought, I will give you this chance. Only by suppressing my cultivation can it be considered fair between us. Otherwise, since we have different paths, it will be unfair to you. Lei Lai looked at Tang Jun and was momentarily speechless. To this day, the strength of the successor of Xianmen Tianzong was publicly acknowledged. What Tang Jun said was actually a very objective conclusion. However, when Lei Jia hunted down Tang Jun, one was the proud son of the Lei clan. His cultivation was in the golden elixir period, and he had enjoyed the best cultivation in the clan since he was young. The other was a poor foundation establishment cultivator who struggled to survive. Lei Jia had never thought of giving Tang Jun a fair fight. However, Lei Lai could clearly see that this was not because Tang Jun was being merciful or arrogant. He was intentionally looking down on and humiliating Lei Jia. All of this stemmed from Tang Jun's confidence. He was confident that even if the two stood in roughly the same position, he would still win. In reality, Lei Jia, who was in the middle Yuanying stage, was even stronger than many late Yuanying stage cultivators. Even if Tang Jun had the battle record of killing late Yuanying stage cultivators in the late Golden Elixir period, it was still unknown whether he could win against Lei Jia if he suppressed his cultivation to the late Golden Elixir period. Among the 4 innate potential values, the direct impact of innate potential on a cultivator's cultivation would gradually decrease after the Golden Elixir period. This was only because of the differences caused by building the spirit platform, establishing the Dan Cauldron, and forming the Golden Elixir period. However, there were always special exceptions. For example, Lei Jia's 9 Qi True Thunder body not only helped in cultivation, but also had a profound effect on his combat ability. The 9 Qi True Thunder form, besides being blessed by the heavens when cultivating lightning attribute Dao arts, had another rare characteristic that everyone envied was that a cultivator could condense a 9 Qi True Thunder form at the Aurous core stage. In terms of characteristics, it was similar to the Dharma form of the heavens and the earth. Both of them were the refinement of one's own Dao art essence into a furnace, thus obtaining even more formidable strength. To a certain extent, a cultivator with the 9 Qi True Thunder body could condense a shrunken version of the worldly aspect before the late Yuanying stage. The difference in strength between late Yuanying and middle Yuanying stage cultivators was enormous, and the key was the worldly aspect. With this connection, under normal circumstances, Lei Jia, who possessed the 9 Qi True Thunder body, could advance from the middle Yuanying stage to the late Yuanying stage. It was even easier than advancing from the early Yuanying stage to the middle Yuanying stage. As long as he accumulated enough transcendence energy, success would come naturally. After attaining the late Yuanying stage, Lei Jia would possess 2 worldly aspects. He would condense one for himself and sublimate the 9 Qi True Thunder body. His combat ability would far surpass other cultivators of the same stage. If he could successfully attain the nascent divinity, apart from merging the Yuanying stage with the worldly aspect and forming a nascent divinity incarnation, his second worldly aspect would also undergo a transformation and form a special existence. It would be somewhere between a Dharma body, a doppelganger, or an avatar. It was neither one nor the other. It was called the 9 Qi God of Thunder body, and it was equally useful in combat. Although Lei Jia was still in the middle Yuanying stage, he possessed many top-notch Taoist techniques. With the help of a large amount of resources and the 9 Qi True Thunder body, he was superior to most Yuanying stage cultivators. Even Tang Jun himself admitted that he did not have an absolute chance of winning against Lei Jia with his Golden Elixir stage cultivation. However, Tang Jun did not care about this. He had never been a person who only dared to fight battles that he was certain to win. Lei Jia looked at Tang Jun and said coldly, "What a condescending attitude. Fairness? Only the strong have the right and capital to give to the weak. Are you sure that you're stronger than me now? Are you taking pity on me? Are you giving alms to me because you think you're stronger than me?" Tang Jun said calmly, "There's no need for me to do that. I've said it before, I won't be lenient in today's battle. Whether you can live or not will depend on your own ability. As for whether it's fair or not, you'll have to fight for it yourself. If you don't have it, then you don't have it. If you hope for others to pity you, then what you beg for will be like flowers in a mirror or the moon in the water." Lei Jia wanted to retort, but he suddenly recalled the silent and resolute expression that Tang Jun had when he was chasing after Tang Jun all those years ago. He did not question or beg for mercy. He did not try to soften his attitude with words just because they were blood brothers. He did not feel angry or unwilling because of the huge gap in strength caused by the treatment he received in the Lei family. He only gritted his teeth and did his best to resist. In the end, when he was beaten to the bottom, Tang Jun's eyes did not have the slightest hint of weakness. There was only ice-cold fury. Lei Jia asked in a deep voice, "Then why are you giving me fairness today?" Tang Jun answered, "We are born from the same mother. You and I are not brothers, but mother and I are mother and son. You are also her son. I'll fulfill your wish and give mother an explanation." Lei Jia's eyes narrowed and he was a little absent-minded. Before his mother passed away, she had asked him to take good care of Tang Jun, but he had thrown it to the back of his mind because of Tang Wenhua. Many people in the Lei family made things difficult for Tang Jun because they wanted to please him. He was well aware of it, but he silently allowed it and even hinted at it. If it wasn't for the dangerous environment at the bottom of the Spirit Extinction Valley, which was dangerous for cultivators during the Golden Elixir period, he would have rushed down there and turned Tang Jun to ashes. Lei Jia shook his head and came back to his senses. He took a deep breath and looked at Tang Jun. "Back then, I didn't suppress my cultivation to the foundation establishment stage to fight with you. Today, you don't need to suppress your cultivation either. Let me see what kind of strength you have after studying in Xianmen Tianzong for so many years." Tang Jun said indifferently, "Up to you." Lei Lai stood up at this moment and said slowly, "True Lord Tianzong, please wait and listen to this old man." He knew that there was no familial love between him and Tang Jun, so he directly called him by his Daoist name and didn't take advantage of his seniority to establish a relationship. Hearing this, Tang Jun turned to look at Lei Lai and said silently, "Grandfather, please speak." Unlike Lei Jia who called Lei Lai grandfather, Tang Jun called him grandfather with an indifferent tone. Back then, this old man completely treated him like heir. When the Lei family was hunting him down, the order to kill him was issued by this old man. Now, he called him grandfather purely because of Tang Jun's mother. Hearing Tang Jun's way of addressing him, Lei Lai understood. He sighed inwardly and continued, "This old one will not interfere if the two of you want to fight to the death. Your grudge must be settled. But before that, why don't you investigate Tang Wenhua first? Where did he go? What's his background? What's his plan? No matter who lives and who dies, the dead won't know these things. Are you willing to go to the netherworld with regrets?" Tang Jun shook his head. "I don't care." He was confident that he would be the one to survive. At the same time, he didn't care that Tang Wenhua's background and whereabouts were no longer important. Knowing what Tang Wenhua was planning to do, it was also for the sake of the sect, the overall situation, or his own basic safety. It did not affect Tang Jun's state of mind at all, so he had no regrets to speak of. Lei Jia's expression tightened when he heard this. Although his state of mind had already calmed down a lot under Tang Jun's influence, he was still exceptionally concerned about this aspect. If he could break through this mental barrier like Tang Jun, his cultivation path would immediately become much smoother. Not to mention the primordial spirit realm, he would at least be able to break through from the middle Yuanying realm to the late Yuanying realm. But now, he still hadn't completely broken through it. In an instant, Lei Jia fell silent again. Chapter 1306. Although Tang Jun had clearly said that he would grant Lei Jia a wish, it could be considered an explanation to their common mother, the person who had given Tang Jun warmth in his youth. But his previous words had been very clear. This wish definitely did not include showing mercy when fighting Lei Jia. For Lei Jia, his pride did not allow him to lower his head to Tang Jun, or even beg for mercy. Otherwise, there would be no need for the fight. He would be crippled. Not only would he have no hope of reaching the late Yuanying stage, he would also have no hope of reaching the nascent soul stage. As a huge hole appeared in his mental state, his actual dermic arts and dermic power might even gradually weaken. Therefore, his battle with Tang Jun was imperative. Lei Lai was also well aware of this. Whether it was the intentions of Tang Jun and Xianmen Tianzong behind him, or Lei Jia himself, he could not stop this battle. But Lei Lai could not bear to see the successor that he had raised with his own hands walk to his death. Yes, although they had not fought yet, even Lei Lai did not look favorably upon Lei Jia when he saw Tang Jun's calm state of mind. Even if Lei Jia said that they were both fighting at the mid-Yuanying stage, even if Tang Jun suppressed his cultivation to the late golden elixir stage, in Lei Lai's eyes, Lei Jia's chances of victory would be even slimmer. This was a hurdle that Lei Jia had to pass. Lei Lai only hoped that he had a higher chance of victory. If he could successfully see through Tang Wenhua's origins and goals, Lei Jia might be able to readjust his mental state. Under these circumstances, even if he lost to Tang Jun, as long as he didn't die, he would still have a chance to rise again. Unlike now, when Lei Jia faced Tang Jun, he could only win and not lose. If he lost, even if he managed to stay alive, his already self-doubting and contradictory mental state would likely collapse even further. But when faced with Tang Jun's challenge, Lei Jia had no choice but to accept. If he retreated and admitted that he was no match, the result would be the same as losing. At this time, Lei Lai could only step forward and help Lei Jia find a way out of this embarrassing situation. At the same time, he also sought an opportunity. Defeating Tang Jun and Tang Wenhua's secret were two sides of the same coin in Lei Jia's mind. Both were equally important. Temporarily avoiding the battle with Tang Jun because of this matter wouldn't cause Lei Jia any setbacks. Tang Jun looked at the silent Lei Jia, whose face was slightly twisted again. Then, he looked at Lei Lai. Xiao Yan sat at the side and did not interrupt, allowing Tang Jun to deal with the situation himself. When he heard Lei Lai's words, he could not help but smile. What Lei Lai was thinking, Xiao Yan and Tang Jun both had an idea in their hearts. However, the two of them did not say anything. Xiao Yan, as usual, kept his mouth shut and did not speak, while Tang Jun faintly said, "Whether or not I know Tang Wenhua's past and intentions, I am not in a hurry. But if you insist on getting to the bottom of this matter first, I will not oppose it." His tone was calm and confident. The current clue is with the two of us. The ancestral land of the Lei clan and that old residence have been moved away by the entire space-time shift. They are now in the Supreme Imperial Palace. I've returned there to study, and that should be all I have gained. I think it won't take long. Lei Jia remained silent while Lei Lai nodded. That is correct. Please follow this old man, master and disciple. Xiao Yan smiled and stood up. Thank you for your guidance, Taoist Lei. The group once again arrived at the sealed Grand Imperial Palace. There were layers of spaces here, as if they were independent worlds. In one of the spatial domains, the Lei family ancestral grounds sat on the ground. However, this ground was like a floating island, suspended in the void. After entering the Lei clan's ancestral land mansion, most of the younger generation disciples in the mansion were taken in and placed under the protection of the clan's experts. They were not to be seen. The people who could be seen in the mansion were not even at the golden core stage. They were all Lei clan's nascent soul cultivators. However, when they saw Xiao Yan and Tang Jun walking over with Lei Lai and Lei Jia, they lowered their heads slightly and solemnly bowed. Xiao Yan was an expert that even Lei Lai could not fight against. The name of Emperor Yan had already spread throughout the heaven primal world and shook the divine land. Although Tang Jun was in the middle stage of Yuanying cultivation and was even lower than the late-stage Yuanying ancestors of the Lei family, no one dared to look down on him. He had once replicated the battle achievements of his master Xiao Yan and killed a late-stage Yuanying cultivator in the Golden Elixir period. He had suppressed his peers and made countless geniuses bow their heads in submission. Even in his sect, Xianmen Tianzong, which was full of geniuses, only Zhou Yunsong and Han Yang could compare to him in terms of actual combat. The youth that they would not even look at in the past, who would only think of Tang Wenhua as he ran away with his treasures when he heard his name, who they felt had dirted their ears, had already grown into an expert that they had to start looking up to. How many years had it been? Although every Lei family cultivator lowered their heads and did not let others see their gazes, they could feel that everyone's emotions were extremely complicated. If Tang Jun was just a lone cultivator, then the Lei family might change their opinion of him, but they would not be as bitter and helpless as they were now. They would most likely try to recruit Tang Jun again. If he dared to refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit, then it would not be too late to take him down. After all, the Lei family still had Lei Lai of the Return to Void Realm and the clan treasure. However, behind Tang Jun stood Xianmen Tianzong, a colossus that the Lei family could not shake at all. Even Fen Tianya alone was not something that the Lei family could shake. Unlike Lei Jia, who was stuck in a bottleneck and had a difficult road ahead, the current Tang Jun was still in a state of rapid development and continuous improvement. Under Xianmen Tianzong's nurturing and protection, the chances of Tang Jun dying were too low. With the strength and potential that he had displayed now, he would be able to look down on the entire Lei family with his own strength in the future. This reality was placed in front of everyone, causing every Lei family member to feel dispirited and lost. Tang Jun followed behind Xiao Yan. His face didn't have the rueful feeling of returning home in glory, nor did he have the arrogance of being satisfied with his success. But it was just this that made the Lei family's people feel even more upset in their hearts. I want to pay my respects to my mother first. Tang Jun looked at Lei Lai and said. He had returned to the Lei family for only a few things. Pay his respects to his mother, repay the Lei family members who had taken care of him when he was young, and settle the score with Lei Jia and the Lei family members who had bullied him. After that, he had to figure out what Tang Wenhua was doing. He was not interested in it, and it would not affect his state of mind. However, he had to understand it clearly, lest there would be unknown troubles in the future that would bring trouble to himself or his sect. Hearing Tang Jun's words, Lei Lai nodded. That's right. After you pay your respects, we will start with 17th Mother's belongings. Everything that Tang Wenhua left behind was kept by 17th Mother when she was alive. The so-called 17th Mother was Lei Lai's first wife's daughter, Tang Jun, and Lei Jia's mother. After Tang Jun offered incense for his mother, Lei Jia also offered incense for his mother without a word. He looked at his mother's memorial tablet with a slightly dazed expression. After paying his respects to his mother, Tang Jun followed Lei Lai to a quiet room. With a point of Lei Lai's finger, a stream of light landed on the table in the quiet room. There were many items wrapped in the light. They had been specially categorized and organized, so there was no sign of disorder. The Lei family, and even the great Zhou dynasty, had clearly been checked inside and out many times. Perhaps there was really nothing special about these things, or perhaps they had been processed with special secret techniques. Some strange techniques could not be opened without special techniques. Even if the decider was stronger, if the decider were to forcefully open it, the item would be directly destroyed, and the possibility of it being destroyed was even higher. Xiao Yan's gaze swept across the items, then he turned to look at Tang Jun. Try it. Tang Jun took a step forward and came before these items. He took turns using his Fa Li to absorb them one by one. Then he used the process of opening the secret matrix in Tang Wenhua's former residence to experiment. Among these items, there were some that he had come into contact with when he was young. However, because his body had not changed at that time, there was no reaction even when he had come into contact with them. After the incident at Tang Wenhua's former residence, Tang Jun had been hunted down. After escaping, he traveled west and finally became a disciple of Xianmen Tianzong. He had never returned to the Lei family, so naturally, he had never come into contact with these items. When Tang Jun grabbed one of the jade talismans suddenly changed. Lei Lai and Lei Jie's eyes shone brightly. The jade seal was not something that Tang Wenhua had left for Tang Jun and Lei Jie's mother, but something that belonged to Tang Jun's mother. In their memories, it had nothing to do with Tang Wenhua. However, it seemed that what was strange was not something left behind by Tang Wenhua, but this jade seal. The jade seal projected light into the air and formed a flashing white door. Xiao Yan and Lei Lai immediately led Tang Jun and Lei Jie into the door of light. The moment they saw the door of light, they already knew that the way to open the door of light was special. It needed a special method to open it, but the door itself was nothing special. It was just a path that connected to a small foreign dimension. It did not pose any threat to them. After entering the door of light, they came to the foreign dimension together. They saw that this place was already barren, and there was nothing left. However, Xiao Yan could faintly feel some profound and wondrous aura lingering within. His hands changed hand seals, and streams of purple energy surged out. They instantly engulfed this small foreign dimension, and completely covered the air in purple. Lei Lai had no intention of objecting or interfering. Instead, he focused all his attention on the air in front of him. In the air, small dots of light gradually appeared. They were as small as corn, and they quickly gathered together to form a unique scene. Within that light image, there stood a unique altar, and the figure of a man stood on it. The pupils of everyone who had seen the image shrank slightly. Tang Wenhua. Chapter 1307. In the image, a man stood on the altar. His facial features weren't particularly handsome, but he had a certain charm to him. He looked 40 to 50% similar to Tang Jun and Lei Jie, but he looked more like Tang Jun. The man looked very young, perhaps only in his 20s, but his hair was slightly white. His eyes and expression exuded a mature and peaceful aura, as if he had experienced the vicissitudes of life. Among the people present, although Xiao Yan and Tang Jun had never seen this man in person, through the traces of light and shadow they had seen before, the two could confirm that this man between young and middle-aged was Tang Jun and Lei Jie's birth father, Tang Wenhua. Lei Lai and Lei Jie had both seen Tang Wenhua with their own eyes. Naturally, they recognized him immediately when they saw the image. Lei Lai's expression was calm as he stared at Tang Wenhua, while Lei Jie's breathing became noticeably heavier. The Tang Wenhua in the image was currently standing at the center of the altar. His hands formed hand seals, and streams of magic power were sent out into the altar. There were other things at the center of the altar. Upon closer inspection, they were treasures rich in spirit energy. They were gradually dissolving under the effects of Tang Wenhua's magic power, turning into clumps of flames. Tang Wenhua's magic power aura wasn't very strong. It had just reached the early stage of yuanying. However, the ritual he was performing was extremely mysterious. Lei Lai stared at it carefully, and his brows furrowed. He discovered that he, who had successfully refined his spirit to return to the void, couldn't understand Tang Wenhua's ritual at all. He couldn't understand the profound mysteries hidden within. A return to void expert couldn't understand the ritual performed by an early-stage yuanying cultivator. The mysteries hidden within Tang Wenhua's ritual shocked Lei Lai. If Tang Wenhua hadn't learned it from someone else, but created it himself, then the mysteries hidden within would be even more intriguing. Xiao Yan's eyes lit up slightly as he looked at the ritual Tang Wenhua was performing. There seemed to be a boundless flame burning in his eyes, dazzling. At this moment, the projection that Xiao Yan had restored with his transcendence energy suddenly shook a little, twisting and pulling. It was as if a piece of paper had been suddenly torn apart by someone with great force. Xiao Yan raised his eyebrows and sneered. He pointed his finger at the image and pointed at it. Suddenly, a raging flame ignited on the image. These flames did not damage the image of light and shadow. Instead, they burned the invisible hand that was tearing the image apart. Being burned by the flames, the invisible hand immediately shrank. The distorted scene quickly returned to normal, and bright flames still danced around the edges. Lei Lai's eyelids twitched when he saw this. Everything that had happened just now happened in an instant. It was so fast that even he could not react in time. If it wasn't for Xiao Yan, then the image of light would have already been destroyed by someone. Even now, Lei Lai carefully thought back to the scene just now and shockingly discovered that even if he could react in time, his magic power and divine abilities probably wouldn't be enough to stop the other party. This discovery allowed Lei Lai to have a more direct understanding of the strength of this purple-clothed, black-robed, valiant youth beside him. The battle between Xiao Yan and the invisible hand was not over yet. After the invisible hand was forced back by the flames, it quickly made a comeback, bringing with it an ear-piercing sound of wind. Gusts of wind suddenly appeared in the quiet room. They were shapeless and indestructible. It was the 9 heavens' formless wind. Xiao Yan coldly smiled, the cyan-colored Xidagarba true brilliance immediately appeared. The dancing flame condensed to the point it seemed solid, attacking and defending in one. At the same time it blocked the astral winds, it also continuously exploded, shattering one astral wind after another. The other party did not succeed in his first move, so he immediately made another move. Dark green water appeared. It was the Taiyin water, and it surged towards the Xidagarba true flame. At this moment, a demonic red lotus suddenly appeared in the air. Its color was pure and clear. This bewitching red lotus transformed into a formless red light and disappeared in an instant. However, at this moment, the raging winds suddenly stopped, and the dark green water also disappeared. Lei Lai and Lei Jia looked at Xiao Yan. They already knew that the demonic red lotus was actually formed by Xiao Yan's red lotus hellfire. Xiao Yan drove the red lotus hellfire upstream, following the 9 heavens formless wind and the Taiyin water to the source and counterattacked the person behind it. The red lotus hellfire specialized in damaging the spirit. When it burned to the extreme, it could directly drag a person's spirit out of their shell and into the cycle of reincarnation. If one could defend against the fire in advance, everything would be fine. However, if the red lotus hellfire really touched one's body, it would be a disaster for most people. The other party's reaction was also very fast. He decisively cut off the connection, making it difficult for Xiao Yan's red lotus hellfire to work. The two of them fought in the air across time and space. The other party saw that it was impossible to continue fighting with Xiao Yan and chose to retreat. This exchange happened in an instant. Lei Lai, Tang Jun, Lei Jia, and the others were dazzled. Lei Lai sighed softly, Emperor Yan's supernatural powers have opened my eyes. Xiao Yan looked at the image in front of him and shook his head, this person is very strong in both cultivation and supernatural powers. From the beginning to the end, he did not reveal his true strength, so I could not determine his true background. He is obviously hiding it on purpose. Otherwise, he would not have performed so well. Moreover, the place where we are fighting is where we are now. His supernatural powers have traveled through the void to come here, so he is at a disadvantage. Without a doubt, the person was Tang Wenhua. Or rather, it was Tang Wenhua's real body. However, he was very cautious. Seeing that he could not do anything to Xiao Yan, he immediately retreated. This made it difficult for Xiao Yan to see through him. However, it's not too far off. In terms of cultivation level and magical powers, I'm afraid he's even stronger than me. Xiao Yan chuckled, there are only a few people like this in the entire divine land. Even if he is an old monster that has been in hiding for many years, with such cultivation and power, there are traces of him. The range is very small. Xiao Yan's gaze fell back on the image that was stabilizing, speaking of which, I already have a suspect. At this point, Xiao Yan stopped talking and focused on the image. Lei Lai's lips moved, but in the end, he did not make a sound. He also looked at the image. The image seemed to be replaying what had happened here in the past. This small foreign dimension must have been the place where Tang Wenhua had secretly carried out his experiments and plans when he had lived in the Lei family. In the image, Tang Wenhua's hands changed hand seals, forming a ritual that relied on the altar to finally operate. Streams of flames danced on top of the altar. Under the illumination of the flames, giant talismans flashed in the air one after another. In the end, they gradually gathered together and turned into a ball of light. The ball of light gradually disappeared, and the profound aura of power also disappeared. But in the scene that appeared in front of Xiao Yan and the others, a light illusion also appeared in front of Tang Wenhua. Although it looked a bit blurry, Xiao Yan and the others could still make out that this scene was a scene within a scene. It was the scene of a woman giving birth. Although she looked disheveled and weak, the woman's beauty could still be vaguely seen. Tang Jun and Lei Jie's breathing stopped at the same time. Lei Lai's gaze also became deep. A child's loud cry came from the scene within the scene. Looking at this scene, Tang Wenhua's lips curled into a faint smile. It's a pity. Although the second work is successful, it's still a little short of perfection. It needs to be nurtured and then stimulated. If it can be like the first failed work, it will be perfect. There are still many things that need to be done. Tang Wenhua let out a soft sigh that seemed to be both praise and pity. Under the illumination of the flames, his face flickered. Also, too many materials were used up. The possibility of failure is too high. Tang Wenhua stood on the altar and looked up at the sky. Most importantly, there is not much time left. If we continue to stay here, they may see through our tracks. He wiped his hand, and the flames on the altar suddenly went out. The light of the altar also gradually dimmed. In the end, it started to continuously disintegrate and turn into dust, no longer existing. Tang Wenhua landed on the ground with his hands behind his back. He slowly walked away, as if he had left this foreign dimension. At this point, the content of the light and shadow image had come to an end. But Xiao Yan and the others were still deep in thought. They carefully recalled everything they had seen. After a long while, Lei Lai looked hesitantly at Xiao Yan. If this old one is not mistaken, among the things Tang Wenhua sacrificed during the ritual, other than all kinds of natural treasures, there seemed to be some kind of bloodline crystal. Xiao Yan nodded. Tang Jun and Lei Jia were shocked. Xiao Yan glanced at them and said, "It is not formed from the essence of the demon race's flesh and blood." When he said this, Tang Jun and Lei Jia's expressions became even more serious. Is it from the human race? Everyone knew that humans could not pass down powerful bloodlines like the demon race. At least, it was not a relatively complete inheritance. A mediocre person could give birth to a monstrous genius with extraordinary talent, and genius-level people could marry and give birth to ordinary descendants. Even if there were strong inheritances like the ancient race, or even the Yan family of Taishu Temple, which had powerful inheritances from generation to generation, they were still not stable. At least in the history of the human cultivation world, there had never been a bloodline inheritance for all kinds of top special qualities, such as the pure yang body, the burning yang body, the pure yin body, the extreme yin body, the 9-chi true thunder body, the blue flame emperor body, and so on. Lei Lai asked in a low voice, could it be that he found the skeleton of an expert who once possessed the 9-chi true thunder body and the blue flame emperor body, and then extracted the blood and bone essence from them? Then he refined it further and obtained some profound mysteries, and then added it to the newborn? But, can this also succeed? Lei Lai was dazed for a moment, but the truth was right in front of him. This is too crazy. Xiao Yan stood with his hands behind his back. After thinking for a while, he suddenly crushed a sound transmission crystal. Chapter 1308. Xiao Yan crushed a sound transmission crystal. On the other side of the crystal, a voice came through, like a low rumbling thunder. Flame Emperor suddenly sent a message, is there something? This voice belonged to the current sect master of Purple Cloud Path, Dao Master Lei Yun. Xiao Yan's actions were not hidden from Tang Jun, Lei Lai, and Lei Jie. As soon as he heard Dao Master Lei Yun's voice, Lei Lai immediately understood what was going on. People who possessed the 9-chi true thunder body constitution were rare throughout the ages. The person who was closest to it was a powerhouse from the Purple Cloud Path who had fallen during the Middle Era. This person had a powerful cultivation and outstanding talent, which made Purple Cloud Path quite famous when he was alive. Unfortunately, he died young and died at the Tao integration realm. Many of the special and magical effects of the 9-chi true thunder body that were spread in the divine land actually originated from this ancestor of Purple Cloud Path. In Purple Heaven Tao, there were many secrets about cultivating the 9-chi true thunder body left by this ancestor. This was the reason why Tao Master Thundercloud, Tao Master Blue Thunder, and other elders of Purple Heaven Tao valued Lei Jie. In all fairness, if Lei Jie joined Purple Cloud Path, it would be convenient for him to cultivate. However, the capital of the Great Zhou dynasty was thicker, and its power was also stronger. At that time, the Xian Gate Heavenly Sect did not have the power it had today, and the Purple Cloud Path, which was on good terms with the Xian Gate Heavenly Sect, was naturally not as attractive as the Great Zhou dynasty. When the Lei family still belonged to the Great Qin dynasty and secretly colluded with the Great Zhou dynasty, Xianmen Tianzong had not even appeared in the Divine Land. Although the ancestor of Purple Cloud Path with the 9-chi true thunder body had died, he was not killed on the spot. Instead, he returned to the mountain with serious injuries and finally died. Although his body had perished, the 9-chi thunder god body, which was unique to the 9-chi thunder god body after he attained the primordial divinity realm, turned into a shell and remained in the Purple Cloud Tao sect, on the Purple Cloud Peak of the Thunder Mountain Range, to guard the sect until now. The 9-chi's thunder god's body was not like a clone, nor was it like a Dharmakaya, nor was it like an external body. It was neither one nor the other, yet it was intimately connected to the original owner. After connecting the voice transmission, Xiao Yan and Tao Master Lei Yun exchanged a few polite words, then he asked, Tao Master Lei Yun, I'm sorry to call you today because I have something to ask you. Please forgive me if I offended you. Is the body of the senior patriarch who possessed the 9-chi true thunder body of your sect, which was transformed from the 9-chi thunder god body, safe and sound? Hearing Xiao Yan's question, Tao Master Thundercloud's voice was obviously surprised. He has been well. Why do you say that, Emperor Yan? Xiao Yan took a deep breath. Please examine it. He paused for a moment before continuing, I've discovered that someone possesses some essence blood from the remains of an expert with the 9-chi true thunder body. I don't know where he came from. Tao Master Thundercloud suddenly fell silent. After a while, he said, wait a moment, Flame Emperor. I'll check it myself. Xiao Yan said, thank you, Tao Master Thundercloud. After saying that, he waited patiently. Lei Lai and the others did not speak. Tang Jun's expression was still calm as usual, while Lei Jie's expression was a little gloomy. In the distance, where the mountain gate of Purple Cloud Path was located, in the Heavenly Thunder Hall at the top of Purple Cloud Peak of Thunder Mountain Range, an amazing thunderbolt suddenly shot up into the sky. After a while, there was another earth-shattering drum sound that shocked the 9 heavens and caused the thunder clouds above the mountain to shake. The whole world and the void trembled in the continuous drum sound. Every time the drum sounded, it seemed that a small world was destroyed. Not to mention the younger disciples of the Purple Heaven Path, even the elders were shocked. The sound of the drum clearly came from the Purple Heaven Path's Mahayana grade artifact, the 9 thunder drum. In addition to the earth-shattering drum sound, lightning flashed in the sky above the Heavenly Thunder Hall and continued to spread, covering the entire Purple Cloud Peak below. The thunder clouds in the sky became thicker and thicker. Bolts of purple lightning fell down and merged with the lightning that covered the Purple Cloud Peak. A huge array pattern composed entirely of lightning spread in all directions. In the end, it almost covered the entire Thunder Mountain Range. For a moment, there was only lightning between the sky and the earth, destroying and annihilating everything else in the world. Is there a strong enemy? All the cultivators of the Purple Cloud Tao sect were shocked. The scene in front of them was clearly the result of the sect master, Tao Master Thundercloud, personally presiding over the sect with the 9 thunder drums. He had activated the 9 heaven divine firmament lightning emperor capital formation to the extreme. But soon, the lightning dissipated and the formation became calm again. The earth-shattering drum sound also gradually subsided. There was no trace of the enemy in front of them. Such a move made many cultivators of Purple Cloud Path feel puzzled and confused. At this moment, in the heavenly thunder hall at the top of Purple Cloud Peak, Tao Master Thundercloud, Tao Master Blue Thunder, and other elders of Purple Cloud Path all looked livid. Among them stood a fierce-looking old man with purple hair and a heavy aura. He was the origin spirit of the Mahayana-level magic treasure, the 9 Thunder Drum. The purple-bearded old man's hair and beard were also standing on end, and his face was full of anger. Tao Master Thundercloud took a deep breath, calmed himself down, and reconnected with Xiao Yan. He said in a deep voice, "Sorry to make you laugh, Flame Emperor. The Ancestral Master's body looks normal on the surface, but it has indeed been secretly touched by someone. Someone intercepted and triggered a part of the Ancestral Master's blood essence." As he spoke, Tao Master Thundercloud's face became ugly again. Not mentioning that he knew nothing about this matter, the other party's technique was also extremely ingenious. After taking action, they even did a lot of concealment and disguise. Under the situation where he received Xiao Yan's reminder, it was hard for him to detect the changes within. He had to call out the 9-link thunder drum and circulate the 9 heaven divine firmament lightning emperor capital seal formation to the extreme, concentrating on searching. Only then did he see some clues. If it wasn't for Xiao Yan reminding him to specifically look for it, if he only used the formation to fight enemies normally, it would be hard to even notice this change. Such a thing really made Tao Master Thundercloud and the entire Purple Cloud Path lose face. Even Tao Master Thundercloud, Tao Master Blue Thunder and the others wanted to deny such a shameful thing so that it wouldn't spread. However, after careful inspection, although they found the change in the Ancestral Master's remains, they didn't know who did it. Seeing that Xiao Yan seemed to have a clue, in order to avenge the shame, they honestly admitted it. "How many clues does the Flame Emperor have? Do you know who did it?" Tao Master Thundercloud asked in a deep voice. Although he couldn't be sure that the bone and blood essence that Tang Wenhua used to activate the ritual belonged to the ancestor of the Purple Cloud Path, Xiao Yan had a hunch that there was a 90% chance that it was correct. He replied, "At present, the clues are not clear. I will explain it to your sect later." After a long time, Tao Master Thundercloud let out a sigh. "I'm ashamed to face the Ancestral Master, I'm ashamed to face the Ancestral Master." The sound transmission was cut off. Xiao Yan turned to look at Lei Lai and Lei Jie. Lei Lai sighed and said, "I promise I won't tell anyone about this." Lei Jie also nodded with a complicated look in his eyes. Xiao Yan said, "Fellow cultivator Tang Wenhua's Yuanying stage cultivation level shouldn't be a lie. However, when I fought with him, his strength far surpassed that of a Yuanying stage cultivator, so it should be his real body. Tang Wenhua should be an alias, but the clues about his whereabouts have been cut off. However, the sequence of his actions is gradually becoming clear. As for his origin and ultimate goal, we can't come to a conclusion yet. We need to find him to know." Lei Lai turned to look at Lei Jie. Lei Jie met his gaze and pursed his lips. "Grandpa, I'm fine." He looked up to the sky and let out a long sigh. Then, he turned to look at Tang Jun. "Let's do it today. You don't need to suppress your cultivation level. It's your fortune to have this day, and my cultivation level is also my fate. This battle will be fair." Tang Jun nodded. "Up to you." Lei Lai looked at Tang Jun and Lei Jie and also let out a long sigh. With a wave of his sleeves, he sent the two of them to the Lei family's battle arena. He looked at Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan shook his head. "We'll just wait here." The victor was quickly decided. One person slowly walked out, while the other stayed inside forever. When Xiao Yan reported everything that had happened and the information about Tang Wenhua to Lin Feng didn't have much of a reaction. "Back then, you made the first move, so you should have known that there would be a 15th. You can deal with the other things as you see fit. As for the origin of the Azure Flame Emperor's blood essence, you might as well investigate it and look for clues." Xiao Yan answered, "Yes, Master." After cutting off the Transcendence Energy sound transmission with Xiao Yan, Lin Feng thought, "Tang Wenhua, interesting. There are indeed many geniuses in the world. Even if his cultivation and transcendence energy aren't at the peak, he might still be able to do something unique. Since I already know the reason behind your actions and the various mysteries behind them, it'll be much easier to find you now that I have a target in mind. However, you've obviously realized this yourself. Perhaps you'll be more low-key in your actions to prevent yourself from making mistakes? After all, if you give yourself away again, you will be immediately caught. Lin Feng smiled and shook his head. To me, it's not important anyway. It doesn't matter if I keep waiting. But how long can you endure? Temporarily putting this matter aside, Lin Feng looked at Zhu Yi beside him. Have you obtained the item? Zhu Yi answered, just as Xiao Dong Tian said, the green cloud stone and the universe jade crystal are both in Xiao Qingqing's hands. This time, they were captured by Hao Yang's clone, so I naturally obtained the item. Lin Feng nodded. Then give it to Chu Yang. This is something that he deserves. Now that the matters of the great Zhou dynasty have come to an end, Xiaoyi, your idea of opening up academies can continue. Hearing this, a faint smile appeared on Zhu Yi's face. Yes, master. After bidding farewell to Lin Feng, Zhu Yi's main body once again left Jade Capital Mountain. He headed east and arrived at the Great Zhou Dynasty's territory, descending upon the Great Zhou Dynasty's capital, Tianjin City. After meeting with the Great Zhou Dynasty's new emperor Liang Qian, Zhu Yi met with Chu Yang. Chu Yang was not surprised that Zhu Yi had come to the Great Zhou Dynasty and Tianjin City. However, he was a little puzzled as to why Zhu Yi had come to visit him personally. Zhu Yi opened his palm. 2 rays of light floated in the air. One was a green stone that seemed as ethereal as the sky, while the other was a black crystal with specks of dark green light flickering within it. It was like a dark green star in the silent night sky. Seeing this, Chu Yang's eyes immediately lit up. Green Cloud Stone and Universe Jade Crystal. Chapter 1309. Chu Yang's eyes lit up when he saw the Green Cloud Stone and the Universe Emerald Crystal. The reason was simple. These 2 treasures were 2 of the 9 treasures he needed to condense the 9th Heaven Sword's true form. They were the same as the Universe Emerald Crystal that he had found in the ancestral land of the 9 Nether Ghost Monkeys at the edge of the Spirit Abyss mountain range. The founder of Beyond Sky Mountain had obtained one of these treasures by accident and it had been passed down ever since. However, few people in Beyond Sky Mountain knew of its true origins, so Chu Yang was the first to obtain it. After that, he followed the guidance of the dreamlike memories and found the 2nd and 3rd treasures in the Great Zhou Empire's capital city and the ancient Yuan Tian domain. Then, he found the 4th treasure in a hidden foreign dimension. At the same time, he obtained the spirit sealing stone that could create clones. Apart from that, he also obtained the remains of the Northeast Sky flag, one of the 9 treasures of the Sky Gates. However, the treasure's origin spirit had already been destroyed, leaving behind only an empty shell. Now that Chu Yang had reached the Essence Soul realm, he had refined this treasure again and reborn its origin spirit. The 5th treasure was the Universe Emerald Crystal that he had found in the ancestral land of the 9 Nether Ghost Monkeys. The 6th treasure came from the Tsangtian Dao Jian. After the Tsangtian Dao Jian had been returned to Xianmen Tianzong, Lin Feng had not kept it for long and had casually given it to Chu Yang. Today, when the Green Cloud Stone and the Universe Emerald Crystal suddenly appeared before him, even the usually calm Chu Yang's breathing quickened slightly. With these 2 treasures in hand, he now had 8 of the 9 treasures needed to condense the 9th Heaven Sword. Not to mention that victory was in sight, the power of the 9th Heaven Sword that had yet to be completely formed would be further enhanced. Chu Yang quickly calmed down and put away the Green Cloud Stone and Universe Emerald. Then, he solemnly bowed to Zhu Yi, thanking Lin Feng and Zhu Yi. Zhu Yi accepted the bow on behalf of his master Lin Feng. When it was Zhu Yi's turn, he slightly turned sideways to avoid it. He said, "The last treasure you lack to forge your sword is missing. However, our sect has just received the Heavenly Jade." From what he said, when the ancient Heavenly Gate was destroyed, the Taishu Temple seemed to have obtained the ancient soul-warm jade. However, the news cannot be verified. Chu Yang nodded his head calmly. The ancient soul-warm jade was one of the 9 treasures that the ancient divine gates had prepared to refine the 9th heaven sword. It was also the last treasure that he lacked. Chu Yang was not surprised that Zhu Yi knew of his secret. He also knew that Zhu Yi was the same as his master Lin Feng. They would not covet the 9th heaven sword. My master said that even if all 9 treasures are gathered, you will not be able to condense the 9th heaven sword according to the sword shadow of the 9th heaven sword. Zhu Yi looked at Chu Yang. If you succeed, the 9th heaven sword will be more like the immortal dragon city that was not completely refined, or the book of life and death of the king of the underworld before he devoured the 6 paths of reincarnation. If you want the 9th heaven sword to be completely refined, you will need an opportunity. When Chu Yang heard this, a thoughtful expression appeared on his face. So it is. As he reached the primordial spirit level and refined the 9th heaven sword, his understanding of the 9th heaven sword became deeper. He also had some guesses. Now that he had been verified by Lin Feng, he was even more certain. However, where was the opportunity for the 9th heaven sword to be refined? Chu Yang felt like there was a layer of fog in front of him. He could not see it clearly. In the beginning, Chu Yang guessed that the 9th heaven sword would be able to reach the creation realm by cutting the celestial heaven sword like the heaven punishing sword. Before Xianmen Tianzong and the heaven punishing sword were born, it was widely recognized that the only sword in the divine land's long history that could fight against the celestial heaven sword was the ancient heavenly gate's great 9 heavens divine sword. Unfortunately, the ancient heavenly gate had fallen long ago, and the 9th heaven sword could only remain in the imagination. After all, before the heaven punishing sword, the celestial heaven sword was the strongest sword Tao Dharma treasure in the divine land. Even if it was broken by the heaven punishing sword, it was still not to be taken lightly. However, the 9th heaven sword might not be as strong as the heaven punishing sword. It had the power of creation before it reached the creation realm. Even if it could break the immortal heaven sword, which was already a creation realm Dharma treasure, Chu Yang felt that it might not be the opportunity for the 9th heaven sword to reach the creation realm. In a sense, the 2 sword Daos were opposing each other, but they were not like the heaven punishing sword and the celestial heaven sword. Chu Yang had a vague guess in his heart, but he was not sure if it was right or wrong. Thinking of this, his heart shook slightly, and he looked up at Zhu Yi. Zhu Yi met his gaze and said slowly, "Master has nothing else to say." Chu Yang nodded. He did not say anything else. In fact, this was Lin Feng's advice to him. After sorting out his thoughts, Chu Yang cupped his hands at Zhu Yi. "Thank you, Master of the Mystic Gate." "Thank you, Master Yi." After Zhu Yi brought the green cloud stone and the universe jade crystal to the great Zhou dynasty's Tianjing city, Lin Feng stayed on Yujing Mountain. He was still sitting cross-legged on a branch of the mysterious heaven treasure tree. Silently, he tried to figure out his Tao. He closed his eyes, and purple qi surged all over his body. Slowly, the Tai Chi pattern on his forehead rotated. After a while, Lin Feng stopped. The purple qi returned to his body, and the Tai Chi pattern on his forehead disappeared. He turned his head to the side. "Sure how? What's the matter?" At this moment, the void in the direction of Lin Feng's vision broke open. A handsome young man wearing a violet robe with golden edges appeared there. It was Miao Shihao. Miao Shihao's expression was calm and dignified. There was a hint of carefreeness and loneliness. He looked worried like the moon. He was like a graceful young master, an immortal under the moon. He cupped his hands at Lin Feng and said, "Sect leader, I'm here to bid you farewell." Lin Feng was not surprised. He smiled and asked, "You finally want to take in a disciple?" Miao Shihao smiled and nodded. "That's right. I've finally sorted out my thoughts. I've also achieved some success in the Tao I've practiced. I'm thinking about finding a successor. Sect leader, you've shown great power in the war between the 2 worlds. Taishu Temple has suffered a great loss. Under such circumstances, we have no choice but to seal the mountain. I don't have to worry about them taking advantage of me when I travel alone." At this point, Miao Shihao smiled again. Besides, even if they kill me now, it's useless. I've already reported everything I know to you. There's no need to kill them. If I just vent my anger, I'll lose more than I gain. The people of Taishu Temple are probably looking at me with the attitude of out of sight, out of mind. Although I've reached the primordial soul realm, I'm still no match for the top cultivators of Taishu Temple. I won't take the initiative to look for them. Anyway, they'll be destroyed by you. Lin Feng's expression did not change. He looked at Miao Shihao. Miao Shihao's eyes were empty. He said lightly, Taishu Temple is biding their time now, but it doesn't mean they'll give up. They're just accumulating strength. Even if you don't deal with them, they'll come to you eventually. Lin Feng smiled but didn't say anything. Miao Shihao also smiled. Some of the sect errands I took on before, I'll go do a special handover later. After the handover I'll directly leave the mountain. I'm a little interested now. What kind of successor will you find? Lin Feng said with a smile, is it a person with a simple and honest mind, or a person with 7 orifices in his heart, extremely exquisite? Miao Shihao shrugged coolly. Who knows? I don't have a definite answer in my heart. I'll just have to look. As long as they're fated, have good aptitude, and are suitable to practice my Tao techniques, be they simple or quick-witted, they're all fine. Lin Feng nodded. This is indeed in line with your usual style. Miao Shihao smiled. His melancholy and cold temperament suddenly changed. He returned to the charming posture he had before he reached primordial soul realm. He looked at Lin Feng. Actually, I, Brother Shihao, have been wanting to find a disciple with a temperament like you, sect leader. He looked at Lin Feng with a hidden bitterness. Sect leader, please don't think that my thoughts are disrespectful. It's because you haven't responded to me, so I can only find a disciple for myself. Lin Feng glanced at him. You decide what kind of disciple you want to take. I won't interfere. However, that child who's going to be your disciple is really pitiful. Miao Shihao covered his lips and chuckled. Sect leader, look at what you're saying. If I take that child as my disciple, I'll definitely treat him well. I'll hold him in my hands and be afraid that he'll fall. Lin Feng said, that's right. That's why he's pitiful. Miao Shihao heard that and instantly laughed out loud. His temperament changed again. Although he was unusually handsome, his laughter was heroic, like a burly man from the north. He sang passionately. Sect leader, you must be joking. After laughing, his temperament changed again. He became elegant and noble, like Zhu Yi and Jiao Junchen. He was like a well-read scholar. He stood up and bowed to Lin Feng. Sect leader, I'll be leaving now. Lin Feng smiled and nodded. I hope that you'll find a suitable successor. Miao Shihao's temperament changed again. He became charming again. He rolled his eyes at Lin Feng before turning around and leaving gracefully. Lin Feng shook his head. When it's true or false, it's true. When it's false, it's true. When it's true, it's false. This Tao technique is interesting. However, speaking of the problem of a successor, Lin Feng looked down in the direction of Yang Qing's Nirvana Paradise. Little Qing's Nirvana Paradise finally has a new disciple. It's rare, rare. Lin Feng had 8 personal disciples under him. Among the 8 cave residences, Yang Qing's Nirvana Paradise was the weakest. There were only Yang Qing and Zhou Yunsong. Because of this, Yang Qing had attracted a lot of gossip in the outside world. Of course, whether it was Yang Qing's personal achievements or the achievements of his disciple, Zhou Yunsong, it had already proved that the people who spread the gossip had eyes but could not see. Yang Qing was in charge of the Medicine Valley. His position was not light. Among the disciples under Lin Feng, his attainments in alchemy were second only to Xiao Yan. There were many younger disciples of Xianmen Tianzong who wanted to be his disciple. However, after the Battle of Annihilation Xian, Yang Qing had been traveling outside for many years. He was afraid that he would miss the teaching of his disciples. At the same time, because of the matter with his lover, Fang Ting, he was also a little disheartened. Therefore, after Zhou Yunsong, he had not accepted another disciple. Zhou Yunsong's own cultivation was full of dangers. He needed to be careful and cautious. Similarly, he did not have the energy to teach his younger disciples. At the same time, his character was also not good at interacting with others. This led to the Nirvana paradise being led by Yang Qing and Zhou Yunsong all these years. However, this time, the Nirvana paradise finally had a new disciple. Chapter 13:10. In the Medicine Valley of Yujing Mountain, the younger disciples of Xianmen Tianzong were busy. This place was originally managed by Yang Qing's Nirvana Wonderland, but after the Battle of Extermination Xian Yi, Yang Qing often left the mountain. Her disciple, Zhou Yunsong, was not good at cultivating spiritual plants and refining pills. Therefore, when Yang Qing was not on the mountain, the Medicine Valley on Yujing Mountain was usually managed by Zhu Yi. After the younger disciples of Qian Tian Temple grew up, most of the time, it was them who took care of things here. When Yang Qing returned to the mountain, the disciples of Qian Tian Temple would directly report to Yang Qing, and Yang Qing would still be in charge. On one side of the Medicine Valley stood a towering tree. The trunk of the tree was extremely thick, reaching thousands of feet high. The trunk was straight and smooth, but above the trunk, a huge crown and branches extended in all directions. The crown of the tree was extremely huge. However, the space of the Medicine Valley had been specially processed. The giant tree, which was thousands of feet high, was contained within it. It could not be taller than the surrounding mountains of the Medicine Valley. It was like a spiritual plant rooted in the Medicine Valley. Only after entering the Medicine Valley and looking from the inside, one could feel the tree's figure that seemed to reach the sky. This is the cloud forest tree that Lin Feng pulled back from the cloud forest world back then, planting it in the medicinal valley and calmly nurturing it. The cloud forest fruit that it bears is either given to the sect's disciples to eat or used to refine medicine. It has endless wondrous uses. This tree had been reopened by Lin Feng. After leaving the dimensional world and coming to Yujing Mountain, it quickly passed the void thunder tribulation. Its accumulated essence was transformed into demonic power and formed a demon infant. After that, it became a demon king in the middle stage and even the late stage as if it was walking on flat ground. In the blink of an eye, it quickly reached the peak of the late stage of the demon king. Only when it was about to break through to the immortal demon's soul did this cloud forest tree demon king become a little stuck. Although the accumulation of demonic power essence was extremely rich, its understanding of the great Tao of heaven and earth was still lacking. However, it was only a paper-thin distance away from achieving the immortal demon's soul. He was the most powerful chief of plants in the Medicine Valley, and he also took on some of the responsibilities of caretakers. He had a gentle temperament, and after he gradually became familiar with the disciples of Xianmen Tianzong, he also taught them how to take care of other spirit herbs and spirit medicines. At this moment, at the foot of the cloudy forest tree stood a young man with brows that were like frost, yet he was the third-generation elite disciple of the Heavenly Heaven Hall and the disciple of Yang Tai, Yi Xinhui. He was born with a body of jade and silver, and he was innately friendly towards plants. He himself was rather fond of cultivating spirit grasses and spirit medicines. As the third-generation direct disciple of the Qian Tian Palace gradually matured and took over the majority of the daily affairs of the sect, many things in the Medicine Valley were taken care of by him. At this moment, he was looking at the girl in front of him with a doting expression. The girl's features were picturesque, and her eyebrows and hair were like frost. She was Yi Xinhui's younger sister, Yi Xinchuan, who was born with a jade tree silver makeup body just like him. Not long ago, she had also successfully formed her gold core and reached the golden elixir period. She could be called a perfected being. She was placed under the tutelage of Zhuge Wanqiu in the desolate Sky Valley, and after forming her gold core, she was given the Taoist name Yuan Shuang. However, she had a mild temperament and disliked fighting, so she was not well known outside of Xianmen Tianzong. The Yi siblings were also quite legendary. Although they were biological siblings, their age difference was 7 years, and they were not twins. Furthermore, Both of their parents passed away early without any abnormalities, but they were born with the same special Taoist body. The probability of such a thing was even lower than that of Luo Qingguo, who was born with the heaven-accumulating dark soul pearl, and that of Taishu Temple Ding Runfeng, who was born with a pure yang body. It was truly amazing. At this moment, Yi Xinchuan was holding a small spirit fruit in her hand, and Yi Xinhui was looking at her with a smile. It tastes really good. Yi Xinchuan ate half of the spirit fruit, and then spread it out on her palm. Two faint shadows appeared in the air and landed on her palm. The shadows seemed to be transparent, but the other half of the spirit fruit in Yi Xinchuan's palm quickly disappeared as if it was swallowed by something. Yi Xinhui smiled and said, "Your illusion moon swallowtail butterfly can only shine at night. It's pretty good during the day too." Yi Xinchuan giggled and looked at the two faint shadows on her palm with a gentle gaze. The illusion moon swallowtail butterfly was a butterfly demon race that was on the verge of extinction. When Yi Xinchuan was training with her master, Zhuge Wanqiu, in the Tianhuang vast land, she accidentally found 10 butterfly eggs. The girl liked butterflies since she was young, so she brought the eggs back to the mountain and wanted to raise them as pets. Unfortunately, the hatching success rate was low, and in the end, only 2 illusion moon swallowtail butterfly larvae were hatched, and they were a pair of male and female. The butterfly was like the moon in the sky, emitting a dazzling brilliance when the sun set. It especially liked to dance among the flowers on full moon nights, like the white moonlight, colorful and dazzling. When the sun rose, it was hard to see under the clear sky, as if it had turned transparent, which was quite magical. When the illusion moon swallowtail butterfly danced in the sky, the spiritual powder it scattered could help the growth of spirit herbs, and it was helpful to those who cultivated wood and wind dharma. If it was cultivated properly, its combat power would be extremely strong. Yi Xinchuan's 2 illusion moon swallowtail butterflies had just grown up, their strength was still low, and their intelligence was weak. But as they slowly grew, they would naturally be reborn. She turned to look at her brother and smiled. Uncle Master Zhou finally accepted a disciple, it's really unexpected. Uncle Master Zhou's foundation is very likely to gradually stabilize, so he finally opened the door to accept a disciple. Yi Xinhui said with a bitter expression and a helpless smile. I just hope that junior sister won't be so curious the next time she comes to the Medicine Valley. Otherwise, the emerald scarlet moon flower I'm raising will never grow. Yi Xinchuan stuck out her tongue. Uncle Master Zhou has always been cold, that junior sister better not offend him. That's fine. Yi Xinhui shook his head. Although Uncle Master Zhou is cold, cruel to his enemies, and has always been famous for killing, he is actually not a cold and bloodthirsty person. His temper is also not that violent, especially towards our own people, he is not that scary. The person they were talking about was naturally Yang Qing's first disciple, Zhou Yunsong. In the eyes of the outside world, Xianmen Tianzong was a butcher's knife among the second-generation disciples, Lin Feng's direct disciple, Wang Lin, the new generation's god of slaughter. Like Wang Lin, when Zhou Yunsong fought with others, there were rarely any survivors. His burning sun-shattering Yuan Qi was even more ferocious and overbearing, causing people's hearts to palpitate. Among the second-generation direct disciples of Xianmen Tianzong, he and Ning Luozi were the most murderous and ruthless, even more so than Tang Jun, Han Yang, Dao Yuding, and the others. But after getting along for a long time, the younger generation of Xianmen Tianzong's disciples gradually came to know that Zhou Yunsong's methods were only cold when facing his enemies. Although he always had a cold expression and was a man of few words, rather than saying he was cold and emotionless, it would be better to say that he was not good at communicating with others. At the same time, he was wholeheartedly focused on the Tao and immersed himself in cultivation. On one hand, it was because his personality was not suitable for teaching disciples. On the other hand, it was because he was born with the burning sun body, and the process of cultivation was dangerous, so he needed to be focused. Therefore, although he was one of the strongest among the second-generation direct disciples of Xianmen Tianzong, Zhou Yunsong had never accepted a disciple. However, I'm afraid that Uncle Master Zhou's days will not be too good after meeting this junior sister who has just entered the Nirvana paradise. Yi Xinhui frowned. Yi Xinchuan comforted, facing someone as serious as Uncle Master Zhou, that junior sister might be more obedient, right? At this moment, Zhou Yunsong, who was the subject of their discussion, was sitting in the Nirvana paradise. Just as Yi Xinhui and Yi Xinchuan had expected, he indeed felt that his days were a little torturous. Master, does 7th Martial Granduncle really always go to the demon world to capture all kinds of demons to eat? Master, why does Patriarch always sit on a tree trunk? Master, did 1st Martial Granduncle's lover, Dao Venerable Qingye, really grow up together? Master, have you ever been to the Mirror Lake Academy that 2nd Martial Granduncle founded? What exactly does it teach? Master, the series of questions made Zhou Yunsong, who had always liked peace and quiet, feel as if his head was about to explode. The days after the other party entered the sect were the most torturous and unbearable days of his life. Compared to the meticulous harassment in front of him, the threat of his burning yang constitution making him feel as if he was walking on thin ice and could spontaneously combust at any time was nothing. After being captured by Golden Cicada and brought to the vast land of infinite wilderness, he had fallen into a state of unconsciousness. He was unaware of the passage of time and everything that had happened in the outside world. Although he felt humiliated, it did not take long. By the time he regained consciousness, he had already been rescued by Lin Feng and his disciple. But now, looking at the little girl who was circling around him, Zhou Yunsong felt dizzy. The little girl was Zhou Yunsong's new personal disciple. Her name was Lu Yilin. Like Duan Muhang, she had been met by Yang Qing when she was traveling outside to practice medicine and then brought back to the mountain. Along with the passing of time, under the guidance of Lin Feng, Yang Qing, and the other seniors, as well as his own dedicated training, Zhou Yunsong in recent years, even though the threat of the burning yang body still exists, but he is already becoming more and more familiar with it. Therefore, Yang Qing's Nirvana Grotto Heaven lineage finally opened its doors to accept disciples again. However, Yang Qing was often away from home, so she no longer accepted disciples. If a disciple could pass the assessment, they would be apprenticed to Zhou Yunsong. This was also Yang Qing's consideration for Zhou Yunsong. In the process of teaching disciples, it would help Zhou Yunsong constantly examine the foundation of his Dharmic Tao and become more proficient in it. Due to his personality, he was half repulsive and half strict. The assessment presided over by Zhou Yunsong was extremely difficult. All the juniors who had passed the assessment to become personal disciples and chose to be apprenticed to Nirvana Grotto Heaven were all eliminated. There was only one exception, and that was Lu Yilin in front of him. This result was beyond many people's expectations. Although she was a little talkative and muddle-headed, Lu Yilin became the only third-generation personal disciple who successfully passed Zhou Yunsong's assessment and became apprenticed to Nirvana Grotto Heaven. In all fairness, Lu Yilin's ability to pass the assessment was largely due to luck. However, since she had passed the assessment, Zhou Yunsong accepted her as his personal disciple. Although Zhou Yunsong, who had no experience in teaching this disciple, was at a loss. However, Zhou Yunsong soon regretted it. Lu Yilin was very excited. When she was a foundation disciple, she could only hear rumors about many things. Some were false, some were exaggerated, and it was difficult to tell the truth from the lies. Now that she had finally become a personal disciple, and her master was the outstanding second-generation personal disciple of Xianmen Tianzong, Zhou Yunsong. She, who was already full of curiosity, could no longer control herself. She just wanted to pour out all the doubts in her heart and get answers from her master. Master, why don't you ever smile? The senior and junior sisters who learned together in the Cloud Peak Hall all said that you are handsome. If you smile, you are even more handsome. Before she could finish her words, she saw Zhou Yunsong stand up and leave the quiet room with an expressionless face. Lu Yilin was at a loss. Did I say something wrong? Chapter 13:11. Seeing that Zhou Yunsong left the room without saying a word, Lu Yilin was at a loss. That's right, everyone thinks that master is very handsome, even if he always has a straight face. generally speaking, even if a cultivator had not reached the level of primordial spirit transformation, the higher his cultivation, the better his appearance would be. His ordinary foundation would become extraordinary because of the cultivation of qi. Those who had a good foundation would be more eye-catching. To be fair, although Zhou Yunsong had always been cold and indifferent, his facial features were extremely handsome. Among all the second-generation disciples of Xianmen Tianzong, except for Han Yang, the others were inferior to him. This was only in terms of facial features, but even in terms of temperament and aura, Zhou Yunsong was still one of the most outstanding people. Sometimes, the younger disciples would talk about him in their spare time. Although it was not appropriate to talk about their elders, they would also secretly exchange gossipy views. Of course, for now, the best was limited to the second-generation true disciples like Zhou Yunsong and Han Yang. Lin Feng, Xiao Yan, Zhu Yi, Shi Tianhao, and the others, they dared not talk about them. However, even so, no one would stab the person in question like Lu Yilin did. Lu Yilin shook her head blankly. When she came back to her senses, she hurriedly followed him, but she could not find her master. Puzzled, she wandered around the various stone chambers and corridors in Nirvana Wonderland in a daze. Suddenly, the light in front of her changed, and she found herself in another quiet room, where a young man in purple was sitting. Sitting there, the young man in purple seemed to have frozen the changes of yin and yang, causing the whole cave to fall into silence, but everything seemed extremely harmonious. In his ordinary body, there seemed to be thousands of things being nurtured, containing endless changes in the extreme silence. When Lu Yilin saw him, she immediately cheered, "Grandmaster." The young man in purple was naturally the master of Nirvana Wonderland, Yin Yang Dao Monarch Yang Qing, the master of Zhou Yunsong, and Lu Yilin's grandmaster. Yang Qing's expression was calm, and there was a tinge of indifference in her gentle gaze. Her eyes were black and white, and there was a faint luster flickering in them, which made people admire her. Looking at him, Lu Yilin felt as if his heart had calmed down and his jovial temperament had stabilized. Remembering the rules, he hurriedly bowed to Yang Qing, "Disciple Lu Yilin greets Grandmaster." Yang Qing waved his hand at her. "There's no need for formalities. After you've settled down, you can follow Yun Song and learn Tao. Take good care of your body." Just like Duan Muhang, Lu Yilin was a good seedling that Yang Qing had met while practicing medicine. Coincidentally, she was seriously ill, just like Duan Muhang in the past. Moreover, her illness was even stranger and more difficult to deal with. This woman's physique was rather strange. The yin and yang qi in her body did not mix with each other. Moreover, it was constantly changing and chaotic. From a certain point of view, it was the opposite of Yang Qing's perfect yin and yang body. Later, her strange illness was cured by Yang Qing, and they returned to the mountain together. She passed the entrance examination and became a disciple of Xianmen Tianzong. While Yang Qing and Lu Yilin were talking, a person walked in from the door of the quiet room. It was Zhou Yunsong who had left earlier. Zhou Yunsong held a small bundle in his hand. He opened his palm, and the bundle flew up and landed in front of Lu Yilin. "This is for you," Zhou Yunsong said. Lu Yilin blinked her eyes and took the bundle. She opened a corner and saw a few bottles and jars inside. Yang Qing said, "These things are for your baptism later. Yun Song will bring you to the lunar pool later." The lunar pool was the source of the lunar pure water that flowed in the Nirvana cave. It was set up by Yang Qing and circulated continuously. The blue water flowed around the entire cave residence and finally converged into the lunar pool. When Yang Qing was cultivating in her early years, and when Zhou Yunsong entered the sect, they had both cultivated in that place. Lu Yilin asked curiously, "Grandmaster, Grandmaster," before she finished speaking. Yang Qing looked at her as if she knew what she was thinking. She said, "The baptism will only take place today. It won't take long. A quarter of an hour will do." Lu Yilin opened her mouth, "Grandmaster, Grandmaster, there is no need to change clothes. The clothes you are wearing are specially made by our sect. It won't affect your baptism." "Grandmaster, Grandmaster, I can indeed know what you are thinking, but I didn't mean to pry. Your mind is too lively and quick-witted, and your spirit is unstable. You don't have the heart to control it, so your mind is exposed. To me, it is like a picture in front of me. I can see it clearly. Lu Yilin was speechless, but she didn't close her mouth. Instead, she opened it wide and stared at Yang Qing in front of her. Yang Qing continued, in the future, when you cultivate, you have to pay more attention to this aspect. It is not a bad thing to have a quick-witted mind, but it is as bad as not doing enough. If you don't control it, you will be dissatisfied. If you don't control it, when you go out of the sect in the future, when you meet other primordial spirit cultivators or some Yuanian cultivators, all your thoughts will be seen by them. Lu Yilin wanted to say something, but she closed her mouth. Instead, her eyes were filled with excitement. She turned to look at Zhou Yunsong. Zhou Yunsong was expressionless and didn't say anything. Yang Qing, who was beside him, smiled and said, "Yes, Yunsong can also see it." Lu Yilin blinked her eyes and stared at Zhou Yunsong. Zhou Yunsong glanced at her and still didn't say anything. Lu Yilin couldn't help but move closer to him and twirl around, as if to show him what she was thinking so that Zhou Yunsong could understand. However, Zhou Yunsong simply closed his eyes. Lu Yilin was immediately discouraged and turned to look at Yang Qing. Although Yang Qing's eyes were still open and there was still a smile on her face, she didn't say anything. Lu Yilin stared at his master, who had closed his eyes, and his grandmaster, who had stopped translating for him. After a long while, he finally couldn't hold it in anymore. He ran to Zhou Yunsong and asked, Master, why didn't you tell me when you could see what I was thinking?" Zhou Yunsong opened his eyes. He didn't look at Lu Yilin in front of him, but looked at Yang Qing. "Master, do you want to use me as the foundation to calm her mind?" Yang Qing looked at her disciple as if she could see the bottom of Zhou Yunsong's heart, not only her, but also you. Zhou Yunsong was slightly stunned. The coldness on his face dissipated and he showed a thoughtful expression. Lu Yilin's eyes moved between the two curiously. Master, how to calm her mind?" Before she could finish her words, Zhou Yunsong flung her sleeve and used his magic power to roll her up. At the same time, the bundle containing the bottles and jars was also rolled up. Seeing this, Yang Qing's eyes flickered slightly and she looked at Zhou Yunsong helplessly. "Yunsong?" At this moment, Zhou Yunsong's expression had returned to normal. He bowed to Yang Qing. Disciple tried his best. "Thank you, Master." Yang Qing looked at him and waved her hand after a long time. "I believe you have a sense of propriety. Go, send Yilin to the baptism first. But things like today will only happen once. It won't happen again." Zhou Yunsong's face, which had calmed down again, suddenly twitched slightly. He turned and left the clean room where Yang Qing was. Xianmen Tianzong, who made cultivators below the primordial spirit realm tremble with fear and dread, staggered slightly when he walked. On the Xiantian treasure tree, Lin Feng sat upright with a faint smile on his face. He looked down at the trunk under him and couldn't help but scold with a smile. "Little girl, you even made up stories about me." Zhou Yunsong's situation was special. His cultivation needed to be carefully planned. It was arranged by Lin Feng and Yang Qing together. After getting on the right track, Lin Feng wouldn't continue to ask questions. But at the beginning, he also wanted to observe and make sure there were no problems. As a result, he naturally saw the scene of Zhou Yunsong fuming with anger at Lu Yilin. He also heard many of Lu Yilin's questions. Lin Feng shook his head and didn't say anything more. His original intention was to find a disciple for Zhou Yunsong, but it turned out to be such a disciple. Lin Feng was also a little surprised. Therefore, Lin Feng simply adjusted the plan. The master and disciple would temper each other's temperament. For Zhou Yunsong, being a master was not as simple as imparting Dao techniques. On the contrary, his gains were not just Dao techniques. Whether it was the world or the internal members of Xianmen Tianzong, their understanding of Zhou Yunsong was actually relatively one-sided. Lin Feng and his master, Yang Qing, knew more. In essence, Zhou Yunsong was not a cold, heartless, crazy, and bloodthirsty person. His current personality and fighting style were to a considerable extent influenced by the special burning sun physique. At the same time, Zhou Yunsong's personality was cold and fierce. He could endure hardships and was indomitable, but he could not bear to be wronged. Moreover, he was very easily provoked by others. Once he was angry, it was very difficult to calm down and suppress. However, the way he expressed his anger was never through shouting, but through bone-chilling coldness. However, Zhou Yunsong himself was not without problems. Although he was cold on the outside but warm on the inside, he was very concerned about the people close to him, and he also had a very high sense of honor and belonging to his master, Xianmen Tianzong. But in essence, he was not a person who easily opened his heart to others. As for Lu Yilin, before she really attracted Zhou Yunsong's attention, her chatterbox and unrestrained behavior would easily anger Zhou Yunsong. And her muddle-headed personality would cause her to anger Zhou Yunsong without knowing it. There was a saying called being spoiled and arrogant. First, one had to be spoiled to rely on, then he could be said to be arrogant. If Yang Qing did not inform them in advance, Lu Yilin was likely to be thrown out of the Nirvana cave by Zhou Yunsong in less than a few days. Lin Feng and Yang Qing also had no intention of specifically suppressing Zhou Yunsong and asking Zhou Yunsong to endure things that he could not bear. They also had no intention of forcefully changing Zhou Yunsong's character. But at least, Zhou Yunsong had to adjust the negative factors in his character to a controllable range. Otherwise, when he tried to break through to the primordial soul realm in the future, he would face great obstacles, and might even have no hope in his life. This was not an alarmist talk. As for Lu Yilin, she also had to accept Zhou Yunsong's polishing. It was just that it was not controllable, but he had to try his best to avoid further loss of control. Similarly, there was no need to forcibly correct it, but he needed to adjust it. The scale of this would depend on Zhou Yunsong himself, and Yang Qing would guide him from the side. Lin Feng believed that the master and disciple could do it well. Chapter 13-12. The flourishing development of the sect is basically within Lin Feng's expectations. After the war between the two worlds this time, the prestige of the entire human cultivation world and the cohesiveness of the sect have both reached a whole new level. Under the mutual promotion of both inside and outside, no matter if it's the new disciples or the disciples who joined earlier, they are all extremely energetic. The entire Xianmen Tianzong was now at the most vigorous stage of development, and the momentum for improvement was endless. However, it was precisely at this time that they had to be more careful. They had to focus on the details and grasp the general direction, so that the overall direction of the sect would not deviate. Rapid development to the clouds and a sharp decline to the bottom could easily lead to problems that had not been there before in a short period of time. The strict examination and selection had blocked the latecomers to a considerable extent, ensuring that the celestial sect of 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 the celestial sect would not expand. As for the disciples who had already joined the sect, it was more difficult to grasp whether their mentality would change, and more attention must be paid. People's hearts were fickle, and it was not as simple as it sounded. Most of the time, it was not because one was complacent, but when the surrounding external environment changed, people's mentality would often change in the process unconsciously. The simplest example was within Xianmen Tianzong. Due to various differences, there were also differences between the disciples. Under the control and guidance of Lin Feng, Xiao Yan, Zhu Yi, and others, the internal atmosphere of the sect had always been relatively upright. The strong did not bully the weak, and the weak did not envy them. The pioneers protected the latecomers, and the latecomers regarded the pioneers as their goals and role models. However, as Xianmen Tianzong became more and more powerful, when some of the weaker disciples went out, they would find that they, who were originally mediocre in their own sect, were so outstanding compared to the heirs of other forces in the divine land. Even if they already knew the strength of their sect's heritage, after experiencing it for themselves, the feeling was the most obvious. Along with it, there were compliments, flattery, envy, and followers from the outside world. They, who were inconspicuous in the past, became the focus and the center of attention, and everyone else revolved around them. But when they returned to the mountain gate, all the halos were far away from them. The contrast would make some people work harder, but it might also make some people feel at a loss and yearn for a life outside, instead of cultivating in the sect. Following the expansion of Xianmen Tianzong's strength and the harvest from the war between the two worlds, Xianmen Tianzong's businesses outside also increased, and it was necessary to arrange for disciples to go and take care of them. It might not be currying favor, but it might cause some of the disciples to have other ideas. It was not wrong to be the head of a chicken rather than the tail of a phoenix. It was just a matter of personal choice. However, if one indulged in the enjoyment of being a local tyrant, indulged in the protection of a sect without being overshadowed by stronger people, or pursued the path of cultivation that could radiate one's own light, it would only bring more harm than good. This was also something that would happen when many other major forces developed to a certain extent. The world of mortals was like water, and it would constantly wash away one's soul unknowingly. It was not easy to be confident and self-reliant, to appreciate all kinds of scenery, and to persevere on one's own path without wavering. One needed to constantly reflect on oneself. However, aside from Lin Feng himself, his personal disciples, Xiao Yan, Zhu Yi, and the other 8, although their personalities were different, their Taoist hearts were stable. Under their top-down control, the mentality of the disciples of Xianmen Tianzong was still in a stable and benign state. From the second-generation disciples such as Tang Jun, Han Yang, Yang Tai, Li Xingfei, and Zhao Huan, to the outstanding direct disciples of the third generation who gradually began to show their talents, they were of the same lineage. The main trunk was not biased, and the branches and leaves were flourishing outwards, maintaining a normal and orderly state. The world of mortals was like water and knives, but for the descendants of Xianmen Tianzong, it was more of a kind of experience, helping them to further sharpen themselves. Lin Feng's personal prestige and the power of the sect had reached a whole new level. His influence on the inside was far-reaching and invisible, and his influence on the outside was naturally even greater. Especially after what happened in the Great Zhou Empire, the world had a deeper understanding of Xianmen Tianzong's strength. Not only was the master of the Celestial Gate, Lin Feng, dominating the world, but his disciples had also truly turned their potential into shocking strength. The geniuses under Lin Feng could now be called geniuses. Complete control of Yinghai made Xianmen Tianzong's foundation even more solid and unshakable. After settling the matter of Liangpan and Zhu Hongguo, whether it was Lin Feng himself or the celestial sect of Xianmen, they all returned to peace. They no longer participated in the internal changes of power in Great Zhou, as well as the negotiations between Great Zhou and Great Qin. They also did not interfere with the movements of other forces in the vast land of the Divine Prefecture. The Great Zhou Empire, which had obtained large amounts of resources and the Dragon Crouching Tablet, could straighten their backs when facing the pressure of Great Qin. Although they had to pay Liang Pan's debts in the war between the two worlds, the new emperor of Great Zhou, Liang Qian, king of Yuyun, Yang Jingcheng, and the others could control the negotiations and compensation within a normal range. This also stopped the northern militant imperial court from acting rashly. However, at this moment, a piece of news caused waves in the Divine Land, and all the factions couldn't help but pay attention to it. This was especially so for the Great Zhou Empire, the Great Qin Empire, and the northern militant imperial court. This news was that the descendants of the ancient emperors, who had lived in the ancient world of longevity for many years, had officially discussed with Xianmen Tianzong, intending to return to the Great Thousand Worlds. Compared to Yudu's return to the Great Thousand Worlds, the movements caused by the ancient emperors were much smaller, and the nature was also completely different. However, many factions in the human cultivation world of the Divine Land were still shocked. The sects were still fine, as they only needed to pay close attention to the developments. However, the Great Zhou, Great Qin, and the Northern Militant were completely different. To them, who had completely integrated the mortal world and the cultivation world, the bloodline of the ancient emperors held great significance. This was the legacy of the ancient human emperors. Just like them, they were a faction that had completely integrated the mortal world and the cultivation world. When the ancient emperors returned to the Great Thousand Worlds, they would most likely have demands for territory. The Great Zhou Empire and the Great Qin Empire were especially vigilant. What they were vigilant about was their qi of the dragon vein. The qi of all beings was an extremely important existence to achieve the path of the human emperor. However, what made the Great Zhou, Great Qin, and the northern militant feel awkward was that the people who would decide whether the ancient emperors could return to the Great Thousand Worlds or not weren't them. Along with the news of the ancient race returning to the Great Thousand Worlds, there was another matter that caused the sealed Taishu Temple and Mount Shu Sword sect to turn their attention to the ancient world of longevity. During the later stages of the war between the two worlds, the king of the underworld was heavily injured by Lin Feng's sword and fled in a sorry state. At that time, Liang Pan and Gu Jun, who were present at the scene, chased after him. Although the king of the underworld managed to escape in the end, his creation treasure, the Book of Life and Death, was damaged once again. Other than Liang Pan obtaining a few pages, Gu Jun also had a harvest. With this harvest, the inheritance of the ancient emperors, the longevity lotus throne, which had never been able to successfully ascend to the creation realm, was finally completed. On that day, the ancient world of longevity shone brightly. White lotuses covered the entire world and even passed through the domain passage to the Great Thousand Worlds, turning into rays of white light that descended on the southern wasteland of the Divine Land. The desolate and chaotic southern wasteland was illuminated like a worry-free hometown, a land of eternal life. However, the Great Qin Empire suffered heavy losses in the war between the two worlds and lost the immortal Dragon City. The Great Zhou Empire's situation wasn't optimistic either. Liang Pan and Zhu Hongwu were executed. The Grand Imperial Palace and the Great Wheel of Heavens were all seized. Although the northern militant royal court's strength soared and could finally stand side by side with the greatly weakened Great Zhou and Great Qin, it was obvious that their foundation was still lacking. Even when the longevity lotus throne had yet to complete its creation, the Great Zhou, Great Qin, and northern militant could only defend against Gu Jun and the longevity lotus throne at the beginning of their tribulations. If they left their own foundations, the three forces would not be a match for the ancient emperor's bloodline even if they worked together. Now that the longevity lotus throne had successfully ascended to the creation realm, the Great Zhou, Great Qin, and northern militant were under great pressure even if they were to defend passively. If Gu Jun reached the degenerate realm one day, and the three of them didn't make great progress, it would be difficult for them to even defend. Now that the Taishu Temple and Shu Mountain were sealed, the only one who could decide whether the ancient emperors could return to the divine continent was Xianmen Tianzong. But what troubled Shi Zongtang, Liang Qian, and northern militant First Chanyu was that the relationship between the ancient emperors and Xianmen Tianzong was not estranged. If one were to say that the bloodline of the ancient emperor had not made a final decision before the War of the Two Realms, then during the War of the Two Realms, accepting Lin Feng's arrangements and rushing to the aid of West Hill City as well as attacking the Emperor of the Netherworld, had already displayed their inclinations. Now that the ancient emperors wanted to return to the divine continent, they first discussed it with Xianmen Tianzong, and their attitude was already very clear. Thinking about the relationship between Xiao Yan and Xiao Zhen, Shi Zongtang, and the others could only smile bitterly. Xianmen Tianzong didn't need to suppress the Great Zhou, Great Qin, and northern militant. As long as they didn't help either side, the ancient emperor's return to the vast thousand worlds was a matter that was set in stone. And with Lin Feng and Xianmen Tianzong's usual style, as long as the ancient emperors didn't cause any indignation, they wouldn't forcefully interfere in similar situations. Normal competition depended on one's ability. Everyone had their own plans, and it depended on who was more capable. However, the exact news soon came, which shocked Shi Zongtang, Liang Qian, and the others. The new ancient emperor, Gu Jun, had chosen the southern wilderness for the ancient emperors to return to the divine land of the vast thousand worlds. The southern wilderness had a domain passage that led to the vast thousand worlds and was often invaded by the demon race. It was a land of hundreds of battles, and the environment had always been harsh and the population was small. Whether it was the Great Qin or the Great Zhou, they didn't care much about this land. They were more interested in some of the unique resources produced here. Otherwise, it would be a complete burden. In these years, the most influential force in the southern wilderness was the reincarnation sect. However, the reincarnation sect had been shrinking in recent years. Other than a limited area, they also left the southern wilderness alone. Such a large piece of land was almost ungoverned. Although the ancient emperors had chosen this place to occupy some resources, the native population was limited, and the environment was very harsh. Of course, after the ancient emperors gained a foothold, as long as they were powerful enough, and as long as Xianmen Tianzong and Taishu Temple didn't interfere, they naturally had the possibility of expanding. But for now, Gu Jun was showing his attitude by taking the initiative to choose such an unclaimed land. Chapter 13:13. In the Kunlun mountain range, in the void above the Yunfeng Mirror Lake, Mount Yujing stood silently. In the great hall of all heavens on the mountain, Lin Feng sat on the main seat and looked at the middle-aged man on the guest seat. Have you decided? The man was handsome and had a graceful bearing. He was middle-aged and had a different kind of charm. However, his aura was very ordinary, like a mortal. It was somewhat similar to Lin Feng's current state. His entire body seemed to have merged with the void. However, Lin Feng could naturally see that this middle-aged man was at the beginning of the tribulation stage. His Tao techniques and abilities were all unique and outstanding. This person was the descendant of the ancient emperor, the current ancient emperor, Gu Jun. In terms of his own magical powers and abilities, he was the strongest person in the human cultivation world in the Divine Land, outside of the Xianmen Gate. After the longevity Lotus Throne finally crossed the final barrier and achieved creation, Gu Jun and the Gu family could already sweep away the current alliance of the Great Zhou, Great Qin, and northern militant families. However, whether it was the ancient bloodline, the Qin dynasty, the northern militant royal court, or the Great Zhou dynasty after Liang Qian ascended to the throne, they were all on good terms with Xianmen Tianzong. Lin Feng and Xianmen Tianzong would not interfere with their competition and schemes, but these forces would more or less take into account the existence of Xianmen Tianzong. Gu Jun had clearly thought about it carefully. Under the current situation, it was obviously not the right time for the human emperor to rule the world again. However, the time for the ancient bloodline to return to the Divine Land was also ripe. Returning to the boundless world of the Divine Land, controlling more living beings and people, and gathering more dragon chi of all living beings was of great significance to the ancient emperor. For them, as well as forces like the Great Zhou dynasty, the Great Qin dynasty, and the northern militant royal court, the power of all living beings and dragon chi were not illusory words about the fate of the country, but real power and strength. The Tao techniques they cultivated, more or less, would have a promoting effect when unifying the dragon chi of all living beings. Regardless of whether it was Stonefeather or Liang Pan, they were both rare cultivation geniuses. But even then, their cultivation speeds actually surpassed most people, and this was aided by the imperial mandate and the convergence of the dragon vein. The new Great Zhou Emperor, Liang Qian, who had just ascended to the throne, instantly broke through the shackles of the past and broke through from the middle stage of Yuanying to the late stage of Yuanying. Moreover, the Yuanying stage continued to grow rapidly and the primordial spirit was in sight. Great Qin's new emperor, Shi Zongtang, had long since reached the returning to void realm and fusing Tao. His cultivation was quite high, so he did not seem to have changed much. If not for the critical situation at that time, Shi Chongyun would have been able to obtain a great deal of help in a short period of time after he ascended to the throne, greatly reducing the difficulty of breaking through to the primordial divinity. The northern militant royal court didn't have much experience in this area, so their help was relatively limited. At the same time, they weren't good at gathering dragon vein chi, but it wasn't completely useless. This kind of cultivation method was not a shortcut. Under normal circumstances, it would not cause an unstable foundation. However, if the monarch were to abdicate, then the rapid improvement that the dragon vein chi and the force of living beings had brought might turn into a disadvantage instead, making it extremely difficult for them to improve in the future, thus cutting off their path of improvement. What's more, their cultivation might even regress. Liang Pan fled to Yingxi and even took away all the mortals in Tianjing city. In addition to leaving some foundation for himself to make a comeback, the more important reason was actually this. This was related to his grand imperial palace. Even without the grand array of Tianjing city, he could continuously draw the power of living beings and the qi of the dragon vein without spending time and energy to set it up again. The southern wilderness was vast but sparsely populated. The territory was actually quite vast towards the south. However, because it was connected to Tianhuang continent and the netherworld sea would crack from time to time, the geographical environment was harsh. Many places were desolate and uninhabited. If Gu Jun wanted to gather the dragon vein qi here, his gains would be very limited. A large number of natives in the ancient longevity world would most likely migrate back to the Great Thousand World with the bloodline of the ancient emperor. However, to turn the southern wilderness into a fertile land that was suitable for living and reproduction was not something that could be done overnight. However, with the war between the two worlds, the situation in the southern wilderness had changed because of the obvious victory of the human cultivation world. In the past, they were in confrontation with the Tianhuang continent, but now, the vital areas of the Tianhuang continent near this realm passage were mostly occupied by human cultivators, while the demon race retreated. Now, the southern wilderness of the divine land was not peaceful, but the threat from the demon race had at least dropped to an extremely low level. Although there were other factors that caused the environment to be harsh, it was undoubtedly a great improvement compared to before the war between the two worlds. The northern militant royal court was too far away. Even if they had ideas, it would be difficult to carry them out. After Liang Pan and Zhu Hongwu were killed, the great Qin dynasty gradually began to have ideas about the southern wilderness. Although the great Zhou dynasty was also deeply hurt, they also had a new view of the southern wilderness. Although the reincarnation sect was not as strong as before, they had the geographical advantage and had operated in the southern wilderness for many years. They also began to have ideas of expanding. However, facing the arrival of the ancient race, the three sects could not resist. The southern wilderness had been ungoverned for many years. Basically, the populated areas were governed by cities. They were superior to the Great Qin, the Great Zhou, and the reincarnation sect, but they were very independent. Although the ancient emperor's bloodline had just arrived, they were much more powerful than the current Great Qin, Great Zhou, and reincarnation sect. The legends of the ancient human emperor were still being passed down to this day. With Gu Jun and the others' means, it would not be difficult for them to take over these cities. Xianmen Tianzong, Taishu Temple, and Mount Shu Sword Sect did not interfere, so Shi Zongtang, Liang Qian, and the others could only accept it. This was much better than starting a fight on the territory that they truly controlled. Although they could not rule out the possibility of the ancient emperor slowly taking over, and although it was the best time to resist them before they had a stable footing, they were helpless in the current situation. Shi Zongtang, Liang Qian, and the others could only accept it. However, according to what Lin Feng knew, Shi Zongtang and the Great Qin dynasty were more and more eager to find the lost immortal dragon city. Gu Jun sat in front of Lin Feng and said with a smile, "On the day of the new city's completion, I will invite my fellow Taoists to attend the ceremony. I hope that the master of the celestial gate can come." Lin Feng also smiled. "If there are no accidents, I will be there. Your clan has been hiding in the medium world for many years. Now that the bitterness is over, the sweetness is coming. This is something worth celebrating." Gu Jun stood up and said, "In that case, I will take my leave first. Sorry for the trouble." After clarifying the attitude of the celestial sect of wonders, the ancient emperor's next move could be carried out freely. Taishu Temple and Mount Shu were sealed. Although the ancient race's return to the divine land had a great impact, they would not interfere. After Gu Jun and his entourage left, Lin Feng was still sitting in the great hall of all heavens. With a thought, he used his dermic projection to transform into a body of light and descended into the returning sky gold pavilion. His eldest disciple, Xiao Yan, was currently busy in the sky gold pavilion and could not be distracted. Even if Gu Jun came to visit, he could not spare the time to see him. However, Xiao Yan was not refining pills at this moment, but refining a magic treasure. This magic treasure had already taken shape. It was a black pill furnace with 3 legs. It was huge and floated in the air. Golden flames that flashed with red and blue light were currently circling above the pill furnace. Under the guidance of Xiao Yan's dermic projection, the pill furnace was refined. This unique flame was one of the 7 great true fires in the world, the Nanmingli fire. In addition to its great power, it was greatly beneficial for refining pills, medicines, and magic treasures. With the help of this fire, among Lin Feng's personal disciples, Xiao Yan was not only the best at refining pills, but he was also better than Zhu Yi and Wang Lin. He was also the best at refining weapons. However, the gap was not as large as in refining pills. Xiao Yan was also more interested in refining pills and had more experience. Right now, he was refining this cauldron because he wanted to refine a cauldron magic treasure that could be used to refine pills. A good pill furnace would yield twice the result with half the effort. On the other hand, for someone like Xiao Yan who was an expert in refining pills and refining weapons, once he succeeded in refining a pill furnace magic treasure with his own understanding of pill refining, it would definitely be extraordinary. In particular, the various raw materials that he used for the refining were all extremely rare and precious materials. The software and hardware conditions were all top-notch. If he still could not refine something good, it could only be said that God was messing with him. After the end of the war between the two worlds, Xiao Yan's mind had always been placed on this newly forged magic treasure. With his divine abilities and magic power, this originally wasn't a difficult thing, but this time Xiao Yan strived for perfection. He had to pursue the most perfect result, constantly analyzing and adjusting, making sufficient preparations in the early stages. Therefore, it was not until recently, when the problem between Tang Jun and the Lei family came to an end, that Xiao Yan finally came to the Celestial Gold Pavilion and began to refine this treasure. The special effect of the Celestial Gold Pavilion could also play a significant role in the refining of this pill furnace magic treasure. In addition to Xiao Yan, second-generation true disciples like Yan Wuwei and Lu Xiaofeng, as well as third-generation true disciples with special expertise like Duan Muhong, were also assisting at the side. After Lin Feng arrived, he did not say much. He only watched from the side as Xiao Yan refined the treasure. Unless there was a sudden turn of events and damage, Lin Feng would not intervene. This was Xiao Yan's magic treasure. As time passed, the flames formed by Xiao Yan's dermic projection flowed into the black pill furnace above his head. However, it was not limited to the Nanmingli fire. In addition to the excessively violent netherworld evil flame, the mysterious heaven tribulation flame that could devour heaven and earth, and the strange and unpredictable red lotus karmic fire, the milky white pure yang true fire, the pure golden true sun fire, and the green Xitigarbha true fire were all continuously added to the pill furnace. The light around the black pill furnace became brighter and brighter, and the treasure light of various colors flickered endlessly. In the treasure light, there were constantly golden crows that looked like suns, phoenixes that carried the 5 virtues, and the scenery of mountains and rivers that were thousands of miles long. The red and blue golden light shone like clouds and clouds, setting off all of this. Gradually, all of this was absorbed into the black pill furnace. Seeing that it was the last moment, Xiao Yan's eyes lit up. Suddenly, he pointed with his finger, and a violent bluish-purple demon fire landed on the pill furnace. After being stimulated by the netherworld evil flame, the black pill furnace suddenly shook and stopped in midair. A thought wave came from the pill furnace, like the birth of a new life. A completely independent and intelligent thought was born at this moment. Xiao Yan stood up and laughed. "My name is Emperor Yan. You shall be called Emperor Yan Furnace. Follow me to refine heaven and earth in the heaven and earth furnace." The black pill furnace suddenly shook again, turned into a black light, and landed on top of Xiao Yan's head. Xiao Yan turned to look at Lin Feng and said with a smile, "Master, during the process of refining the pill furnace, I have a new idea about the pill recipe. This time, I should be at least 80% confident." Chapter 13-14. Although the Emperor Yan cauldron was only a spirit-nurturing grade magic treasure, the mysterious principles within it were already quite extraordinary. Lin Feng and Xiao Yan had both come into contact with the flaming sky divine cauldron that was seized from the East Heaven Gate and later transferred to the Northern Militant Royal Court. Although the flaming sky divine cauldron was reforged by the East Heaven Gate, it was still a rare magic treasure for alchemy. Not only did the northern militant royal court regard it as a treasure, any force in the divine land would also value it greatly. Since they were both spirit-nurturing grade magic treasures, both Lin Feng and Xiao Yan were sure that the new Emperor Yan cauldron in front of them had already surpassed the flaming sky divine cauldron. So far, the strongest magic treasure for alchemy in the human cultivation world was naturally the creation magic treasure refined by Xia Huang, Ding of Shenzhou. Outside of Ding of Shenzhou, there was the Sun-Moon Divine Cauldron of the Taishu Temple, the Flaming Sky Divine Cauldron of the Ancient Heavenly Gate, the Desolate Immortal Cauldron of the Ancient Emperor, the Heaven and Earth Cauldron of the Primitive Demon Cult, the Origin Qi Cauldron of the Ancient Chong Emperor, and the Bodhi Cauldron of the Great Lane Temple. Most of the top forces in the history of human cultivators had such magical equipment as their foundation, which had played a vital role in their rise to power. Xianmen Tianzong was now so prosperous. In addition to its rising status in the outside world, one of the important internal factors was the success of Ding of Shenzhou. Under the continuous operation of the number one pill refining magic treasure in the history of the human clan, as long as the celestial sect of wonders had sufficient resources and materials, the various spirit pills and miraculous medicines produced in just one day would be an unimaginable number to the outside world. Now that Xianmen Tianzong had obtained 4-star sea gates and gained control of the divine land, Xianmen Tianzong became the number one holy land in the world, and obtained great results in the war between the two realms. All of these made Xianmen Tianzong not lack resources. With the cooperation of Ding of Shenzhou, the overall strength of the sect suddenly had signs of further explosive growth. It wouldn't take too long to see the results. What the celestial sect of wonders lacked the most was time. And all of this. He was making up for the lack of foundation of the celestial sect of wonders at a speed that left one dumbfounded. Xiao Yan was supposed to be the happiest person to receive Ding of Shenzhou. However, due to some special reasons, the relationship between Xiao Yan and Ding of Shenzhou was not very good. In fact, after the incident at the Nether Sea, where Xia Huang's phantasm soul was completely destroyed, the relationship between Xiao Yan and Ding of Shenzhou had gradually eased. Xianmen Tianzong, the de facto number one alchemist, and the number one alchemist magical equipment in the history of the human cultivation world gradually formed a tacit understanding with each other. Xiao Yan's attainments in the Tao of alchemy were also gradually improving as they complemented each other with Ding of Shenzhou. The ancient world of immortals and Taishu Temple's Lord Qing Ning and the ancient race's Lord Spiritual Awareness Gu Yuan had a gamble at the elixir gathering. They had obtained 4 top-grade spirit pills from Taishu Temple's collection, as well as the desolate spirit spring of the ancient world of immortals. The pill recipes for the 4 top-grade spirit pills, including the golden elixir of the divine Advent Great Tao, had already been deduced through the heavenly gold pavilion. Xiao Yan had benefited greatly from studying these top-grade pill recipes. He gradually began to integrate his understanding of the Tao of alchemy and bring forth new ideas. A brand new pill recipe that belonged to Xiao Yan, one that had never appeared in the great heaven primal world before, gradually took shape in Xiao Yan's mind. It integrated various principles of heaven and earth, constantly perfecting itself. Xiao Yan had created his own pill recipe before, but its level was relatively low. This time, it would be a brand new spirit pill that was not inferior to the 33 Heavens Fortune Immortal Pill, the 10 Saints Golden Elixir, and the Golden Elixir of the Divine Advent Great Tao. Now that he had gradually reached a tacit understanding with Ding of Shenzhou, Xiao Yan's need for the Emperor Yan cauldron was not that urgent. But on one hand, it was to leave behind the inheritance of his own Fentianya bloodline, so that it would be convenient for Tang Jun, Duan Muhang, and the others who were gradually growing up to refine pills. The furnace of the outer sky was still useful for Duan Muhang and the others, but Tang Jun, who was already in the middle stage of yuanying, had gradually felt the same as Xiao Yan in the past. He felt that the furnace of the outer sky could not keep up with his own growth speed. Secondly, Xiao Yan used his own alchemy skills to assist in the sacrificial refining of the Emperor Yan cauldron. At the same time, he would also receive feedback and promote his own understanding of the Tao of alchemy. Now, he only felt that his heart was extremely clear and bright. There were many things that had accumulated in his heart, melted into a furnace, and suddenly erupted. Seeing this, Lin Feng smiled. Bring your Emperor Yan cauldron, let's go to Ding of Shenzhou together. Even if he already had a draft in his heart, and had a lot of speculation before, but to really derive a complete new pill formula, he still needed to continue to practice. In this process, just the raw materials consumed would be a huge number. In history, there were countless top elixirs and medicines. Chong Huang created the 10 Saints Golden Elixir, Yan Xing he created the Supreme Treasure Wisdom Pill, the ancient Heavenly Gate Elder Ling Qiong Dao Venerable created the Life Replacement Heavenly Pill, Xia Huang created the Boundless Divine Pill, and one of the 10 great disciples of Buddha, Shariputra created the Bodhi Treasure Pill, and so on. These top-notch spirit pills were also the sparks of inspiration that burst out after the alchemists' attainments in alchemy and their own understanding of the great Tao of heaven and earth had both reached a relatively high level. Finally, after countless experiments and the consumption of a large amount of resources, they were finally gradually established. However, the commotion that Xiao Yan made this time was really a little big. Lin Feng sat on the branch of the mysterious heaven treasure tree, mainly focusing on cultivating his own Tao, but he also split some attention to Ding of Shenzhou to pay attention to Xiao Yan's progress. Huh? Lin Feng, who was originally in an extremely relaxed mood, suddenly widened his eyes. Brat, you're taking a risk again. In the next moment, Ding of Shenzhou suddenly shook. Lin Feng looked at his eldest disciple with anger and amusement. At this moment, Xiao Yan himself had manifested the essence soul incarnation of the Taiji diagram. The entire Taiji diagram was in tatters, as if it had been torn apart. It was obviously seriously injured. Fortunately, at this moment, he had already comprehended the profoundness of Tao birth and Tao destruction. The essence soul Taiji diagram quickly returned to normal, and then turned back into a human form, but his face was a little pale. Xiao Yan smiled sheepishly. It was a little risky, that move just now was only a little bit away from the cauldron exploding. Although the treasure of alchemy was Ding of Shenzhou, even if the cauldron really exploded, it would only damage the materials and hurt Xiao Yan himself. The cauldron would not be damaged, but if that really happened, it would still be a disaster. Especially for Xiao Yan himself, it would be a heavy blow. His understanding of the profoundness of alchemy had suddenly fallen to rock bottom when his heart was at its peak. However, although it was risky, Xiao Yan still succeeded. He smiled and moved in front of Lin Feng. His palm swiped in the void, turning into a light screen. On the light screen, Dharma and logos intertwined, forming a complete alchemy recipe. All these years, Lin Feng had not neglected his alchemy skills. His understanding of alchemy was also better than most people in the world, reaching a considerable height. Therefore, he had no difficulty reading Xiao Yan's alchemy recipe. Oh, not bad, not bad. After carefully looking at it for a moment, Lin Feng nodded. At this moment, Xiao Yan hurriedly handed over a small gourd. Lin Feng pulled out the stopper of the gourd, and golden smoke emerged from it. After feeling some of the medicinal power and concept contained in the golden smoke, the corners of Lin Feng's mouth curled up slightly. Then, he looked at Xiao Yan. Which furnace is this? Xiao Yan chuckled. The 6th furnace. Lin Feng said, Master originally estimated that you would need more than 10 furnaces to finally achieve the final perfect effect and complete success. Xiao Yan patted Ding of Shenzhou. Some of the materials are still quite valuable. It may not be difficult for our sect to collect them, but it will take a long time. Disciple wants to save as much as possible, so that we can quickly refine a few furnaces of good pills. He chuckled. It seems risky, but I am about 70% confident. Anyway, even if the furnace explodes, at least Ding of Shenzhou will be fine, and the loss will not be too great. Lin Feng looked at him with a faint smile. If the furnace really explodes, Master can protect you and Ding of Shenzhou. At most, we will lose some medicinal materials, but the blow to your own state of mind will not be able to make up for it. That's why I didn't protect you just now. I want you to remember that you have to feel pain before you pay attention next time. When Xiao Yan heard this, he smiled rather mischievously. Didn't I succeed? Lin Feng pointed at him with his finger. Now, not only is Lin Feng's power and influence becoming stronger and stronger, Xiao Yan has also already become a giant of a region, a prodigy-like figure. Outsiders already rarely see this appearance, only in front of Lin Feng will it frequently appear. The longevity city built by the ancient emperor in the southern wilderness is about to be officially completed. Everyone is invited to attend the ceremony. Come with master. As Lin Feng said this, he handed the gourd in his hand to Xiao Yan. Light flickered around him, and the divine god of war clone appeared. His main body would not leave the mountain for the southern wilderness, so the divine god of war clone would go with Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan took the gourd and nodded. He then selected some of his juniors to go with him. The group immediately set off for the southern wilderness. It was not Xiao Yan's first time coming to the southern wilderness of the Divine Land, but this time, he could feel the difference even from afar. Even though the flow of qi was still chaotic and desolate, there was already a clear path to follow, and the qi was slowly converging towards a single point. Lin Feng's divine god of war clone and Xiao Yan were startled. They raised their heads and saw the space in front of them split open. A girl in a blue dress walked out from it, like a blooming blue lotus. It was Xiao Zhen. Xiao Zhen saw Xiao Yan and smiled. However, she did not greet Xiao Yan first, but bowed to Lin Feng first and said, "Senior Lin, your presence brings light to our longevity city." Lin Feng smiled and said, "Miss Zhen, you're being too polite." Finishing, he didn't say anything else and quietly looked at this pair of children. Xiao Yan went up and stood together with Xiao Zhen. Both of their eyes were filled with joy. Xiao Yan's disciples also came up to greet Xiao Zhen. Junior greets Dao Lord Qin Yi. Under Xiao Zhen's guidance, the group continued forward. Soon, a majestic white city appeared in everyone's sight, dazzling in the southern wilderness. Chapter 13-15. The city that appeared in front of Lin Feng, Xiao Yan, and the others looked similar to the ancient clan's imperial city in the immortal ancient world, but it was more majestic. The city was located in the southern wilderness, and it was a magnificent sight. Beams of white light rose into the air like blooming white lotuses. The white light seemed endless, connecting the past, the present, and the future, blurring the flow of time. There was even a thriving vitality that blended with the wild and chaotic southern wilderness. It was filled with a desolate and ancient aura, but also the power of countless living beings, pointing to the infinite possibilities of the future. Lin Feng looked around, his gaze piercing through the void and looking into the distance. After a while, he retracted his gaze and smiled. The southern wilderness was vast and sparsely populated. Apart from the mountain people in the wilderness, most of the population was concentrated in a few areas, where cities were built and people lived. At this moment, these cities had obviously been subdued by the ancient emperor, who had set up spell formations in these cities to connect the Qi meridian to the immortal city before them. The bloodline of the ancient emperor had successfully brought the southern wilderness territory under their control. Among them, there might be people who temporarily surrendered, or people who harbored other intentions, such as people from the Qin dynasty, the Great Zhou dynasty, or the reincarnation sect. However, with the power of the ancient emperor, it was only a matter of time before these situations were resolved. Not long ago, the ancient emperor had already announced to the world that the country would be called ancient, and the southern wilderness of the Divine Land would be their territory, officially returning to the vast thousand world. In a sense, this was equivalent to building a new country, and giving up on the throne of the human emperor, which had persisted since ancient times, and giving up on the past. Even if the ancient nation could rule the Divine Land again, it would be a new beginning, not a restoration of the ancient emperor. Although they understood this, the Great Zhou dynasty and the Great Qin dynasty couldn't relax with such a powerful neighbor. Lin Feng and Xiao Yan and his master and disciple advanced all the way. Nearing Longevity City, they saw an old man standing in the air, currently looking at the grand city in front of him, not saying a word. "Greetings, Senior Shi." Xiao Zhen greeted the old man with the courtesy of a junior. The old man turned around. He was none other than the great Qin dynasty's elder, the Dao integration stage cultivator, King Zhenyang, Shi Zongmao. The great Qin Empire had also received an invitation from the ancient kingdom, and Shi Zongmao was invited to attend Lifelong City's opening ceremony. No matter what would happen in the future, at least the ancient legatee did not seem too overbearing right now. Even if Great Qin had many thoughts, it would not lose its decorum and directly show hostility. When Shi Zongmao saw Xiao Zhen, he immediately nodded and returned the greeting, "Dao Master Qingyi, this old man greets you." Then, his gaze landed on Lin Feng's god of war clone and Xiao Yan. "Greetings, master of the celestial sect and Emperor Yan." Behind Shi Zongmao was a group of great Qin dynasty cultivators who came with him to watch the ceremony. At this moment, they also hurriedly greeted Lin Feng, Xiao Yan, and Xiao Zhen. In addition, the ancient tribe's elder who accompanied Shi Zongmao also greeted Lin Feng. At this moment, the void on the other side broke open. Under the lead of Xianmen Tianzong's old acquaintance, Gu Pen Xian, a group of cultivators also arrived outside Lifelong City. The middle-aged man in the lead was also familiar to Lin Feng and his disciple. It was the great Zhou dynasty's King Yan Liang Fu. Whether it was the great Zhou dynasty's cultivators who stayed in the Divine Land or the great Zhou dynasty's experts who escaped with Liang Pan and Zhu Hongguo, apart from a few who had committed serious crimes, Xianmen Tianzong did not make things difficult for them. Instead, they were all handed over to the great Zhou dynasty's new emperor, Liang Qian, to deal with them. Although a new emperor had his own ministers, in the cultivation world, it was not easy to nurture new experts. Liang Qian had just ascended to the throne, and his foundation was not stable. Moreover, there was pressure from the great Qin dynasty, the northern militant royal court, and the newly established ancient kingdom. Therefore, there was no purge. Most of the great Zhou dynasty's experts were appeased and subdued by Liang Qian. However, Liang Qian was not a person who only appeased others. He would not allow others to bully him. A small number of people were dealt with. Under the combination of kindness and authority, the great Zhou dynasty's situation was stabilized as soon as possible. The king of Yan Liang Fu, the king of Yuyun, Liang Jingcheng, the king of Donghai, Liang Jinglai, and the others all expressed their allegiance to Liang Qian. Although Liang Qian's cultivation was still limited, he was the most suitable monarch for the current situation. This time, Liang Fu was the representative of the great Zhou dynasty and was invited to attend the ceremony. When Liang Fu and the ancient brush spirits saw Lin Feng, Xiao Yan, Shi Zongmao, and the others, they naturally exchanged pleasantries. After greeting each other, Liang Fu looked at the eternal city in front of him with the same expression as Shi Zongmao. The two of them looked at each other, and then looked away at the same time. Their hearts were a little heavy. They were both heirs of their respective dynasties, and they could tell that the city of longevity before them had already begun to successfully attract the chi of the dragon veins formed by the hearts of the commoners of the southern wilderness. In the void, there seemed to be invisible white dragons flying around, gathering in the majestic city in front of them from all directions. Xiao Zhen said, "Seniors, please." She was the first to land on the eternal city. In the void above the city, there were many formation patterns and white light flashing. It was a huge formation. Lin Feng and Xiao Yan, who had entered the ancient world of immortals, saw it and nodded to themselves. The South Pole Longevity Formation. The formation in front of them was the South Pole Longevity Formation of the ancient emperor's lineage. It was very powerful and mysterious. To Gu Jun and the other strong ones of the ancient race, building a majestic city from flat land was as easy as blowing off dust. However, an ordinary city was naturally not what they wanted. The reason why Longevity City had taken such a long time to build was partly to strengthen the city and turn it into a sturdy fortress, and partly to set up a brand new South Pole Longevity Formation. This was not a casual formation, but a powerful formation that was not inferior to the South Pole Longevity Formation that the ancient world of immortals had been operating for many years. Returning to the Divine Land, the ancient race was not going to go back after one round. From now on, the ancient world of immortals was more of a retreat. the focus of their operations would be shifted to the ancient nation on the divine land. As the capital of the ancient nation, Eternal City was equivalent to the Great Zhou dynasty's Tianjing, the Great Qin dynasty's West Hill, or the mountain base of a sect. Naturally, they had to plan carefully. The change of the spiritual qi in the southern wilderness originated from this. In addition to Shi Zhongmao and Liang Fu, other forces were also invited to attend the ceremony. Especially the sects near the southern wilderness, such as the Canghai Sword Sect, the Reincarnation Sect, the Wilderness Sword Sect, and other forces, all sent their elders to attend. Although it was located in the north, not bordering the ancient nation, separated by the Great Zhou and the Great Qin, the northern militant royal court also sent representatives. Looking at the Eternal City, they were also not relaxed. On the side of the ancient country, they gave the guests the best reception, not lacking in manners. But relatively speaking, in addition to being polite to Xianmen Tianzong, they naturally felt closer to him. This was also part of the reason. In addition, the two sides also sighed when they met Tao Master Blue Thunder of the Purple Cloud Path. In the human cultivation world, apart from the Taishu Temple, the Mount Shu Sword Sect, and the revived Buddhism, the Purple Cloud Path was the only force that had been passed down since ancient times. Of course, everyone wanted to beat them up, and every generation wanted to annihilate them. The bloodline of the Emperor of the Underworld, which the ancient race did not have a good relationship with, would definitely not be taken into consideration. When all the invited guests arrived, it was naturally a grand occasion. The Eternal City was completely completed, and the South Pole Longevity Formation was fully operational. Some were happy, and some were sad. Another powerful force rose in the Divine Land. Not only would it stir up the local situation, but it would also affect the overall situation of the entire Divine Land. However, the people who cared the most would definitely be the Wilderness Sword Sect, the Reincarnation Sect, the Canghai Sword Sect, or the Great Zhou, the Great Qin, and the northern militant forces that were a combination of secular and cultivation classes. The Great Zhou dynasty and the Great Qin dynasty, which were both close to the ancient nation, felt the most deeply. Especially when Shi Zhongmao and Liang Fu saw the white dragon Qi surrounding Gu Jun and a white lotus blooming in the void above his head, each petal like a world, their hearts became heavier. After the ceremony, there were naturally other follow-up events. The ancient nation was rebuilt, and a group of high-level experts also took this opportunity to communicate with the various forces. For them, the most important thing was naturally Lin Feng's avatar who came to visit. In the main hall of the Eternal City, Gu Jun and Gu Yuankai sat together with Lin Feng. Beside Lin Feng, Xiao Yan stood with the etiquette of a junior. The current Xiao Yan naturally did not need to do so, but he was willing, and Xiao Zhen, also stood beside him. Lin Feng smiled and said, "I came in a hurry, so the gift is a little thin. Please don't blame me, my friends." After saying this, he turned to look at Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan took out a small gourd and offered it. Gu Jun took the gourd curiously and pulled out the stopper. He scanned it with his consciousness and was instantly moved. The medicinal power and the laws within are extraordinary, but I have never heard of a pill like this before. Just what is this? Gu Yuankai, who was beside him, was more proficient in the way of alchemy. After carefully analyzing it for a while, his two white eyebrows also moved slightly. "Forgive me for being ignorant, but I have never seen this pill before. Although I do not know its medicinal effects, it is not inferior to the 33 Heavens Fortune Immortal Pill and the 10 Saint Golden Elixir." Lin Feng smiled and did not speak, while Xiao Yan cupped his hands. "This pill is called the Mysterious Sky Myriad Wonders Golden Elixir. This junior figured it out myself. Elders, you are both alchemy experts, please correct me." Hearing this, Gu Jun and Gu Yuankai looked at each other. The ancient emperor's bloodline was proficient in alchemy. The ancient emperor, Gu Changsheng, was one of the human sovereigns who was most proficient in alchemy, on par with Emperor Chong and Xia Huang. The South Pole Longevity Formation was the best formation to assist in alchemy. The ancient emperor's longevity pill and treasure lotus pill were elixirs that were on par with the 10 Saint golden elixir, the God-descending Great Tao golden elixir, the life replacement heavenly pill, the Bodhi treasure pill, and other top elixirs. But it was also because of this that they clearly knew how difficult it was to create such an elixir. Since the Middle Era, when the Taishu Temple's Tianqing Daoist created the God-descending Great Tao golden elixir, no one had created a similar grade of elixir. That was why when the 33 Heavens Fortune Immortal Pill first became known, it caused a huge commotion. At this moment, they also understood why Lin Feng and Xiao Yan did not present their gifts with the others. It was not because they were arrogant, but because they did not want to steal the spotlight.